All right. Hopefully people can hear us. I'm here with wTactlenecks. Assuming we can hear you. Can we hear you?
Testing.
I think we can hear you.
I can hear me.
Well, that's a good sign. Because
Not
I might just,
reverb,
I might
but
just be hearing voices, right?
right?
Um, Good. All right. I think we'll decide it's probably working then. Uh, so good. How's everything been going this week?
It's pretty solid. It's been a rough tournament week, I won't lie, but whatever, you just keep powering on. I feel like 2 weeks ago tournaments were feeling slower than they are now. Like honestly, last week was the slowest. This week I feel like things are some stuff's feeling faster and some things are feeling slower. I don't know, it's just weird. It's like a ADD toddler is just deciding what's gonna fill and what's not. So I keep randomly playing new tournaments that I'm not used to.
I wonder
So,
if it's just the qualification, because the last week of qualification,
oh yeah,
often people are just playing kind of exactly what they need to get the right set of points.
definitely. No, absolutely. And then now we're kind of back to people playing their bread and butter, and I'm kind of changing what I play a little bit. Like I'm starting to play the Daily Iron 1980 to 2023 more. I never really bothered because all I ever really played was Iron Cap for dailies, and that got me my Iron qualification. I just played a bunch of other caps. But with tournament cards being just so
Yeah.
worthless almost at this point, so quickly it feels. Again, I don't have a great feel for it, but compared to set one, um, for a lot of reasons, but I'm finding myself targeting the four historical Diamond Pack tournaments more. Um, partially just because I feel like those four packs, I mean, worst case scenario, you're going to get 4,500 to 5,000 for a card.
Yeah.
And if you wait, it'll be more. And that 25,000 to 30,000 is just about what you're getting for high diamonds right now. And third place gets three historical diamond packs. So it's an incredibly good deal relative to tourney rewards at this point because of how far they've fallen. And like, I can't remember who made the comment somewhere in one of the discords. They're like, anything lower than a low diamond is just like at this point all I do when I get a low like a gold or a silver pack is if I don't own the card yet, I pick it.
Yeah.
And if it's a duplicate, I just pick one because I'm just waiting for hopefully something to end up in a mission and I have a bunch of them. Or that's the only thing I care about with golds and silvers at this point. They're
I think one of the things people didn't realize, and like I think this is something you think about from a game design point of view too, is just how many cards, especially from these tournament batches, are out there. So this tournament
Mhm.
batch is how old now? Is it about 2 months?
I think it was August 5th was the reset. So we
Right, but I
are
thought the tournament batch was from before the reset, though, wasn't it?
oh yeah, probably that makes sense. Uh,
I thought the reset was just formats, and the tournament card refresh was, I
yeah, let
thought,
me see if
earlier
I
than
can
that.
find them. Let me see if I can.
I'm not certain actually.
Well, it's like I've been asking in the main Discord, kind of, do we have, you know, is the next set in the pipe? Like, do we have a date, etc.? I know there's a
Yeah,
plan. I'm not worried about that in the slightest. But like
right,
everybody, it started a pretty lengthy conversation, about a potential tournament points shop again, which seems to be gaining steam in Discord.
right.
Um, Not sure it's going to happen or not, and it's got its own set of problems. But still no answer yet, which is, if we go more than
Okay, but I
two or
think
three
this is
more
sort I
weeks.
think this is sort of a design issue. So maybe, I mean, just to get a rough count for the moment, right?
Mhm.
Um, so like how many silver packs do we give out a week? Well,
Let's see. Yeah.
all right. So let's see. I got a list here. So how many dailies are there that are giving out packs? Let's start with that. Um, Here. So let me just start with how many dailies there are. It's roughly 7 times 5, right? Um, but I guess I can actually count. Or no, I guess we have to count how many of them are actually giving out tournament packs as well, right?
Right. Of course, and you also have weeklies that do it as well.
Yes. Okay, it looks like 34, I think, if I'm counting this correctly, although I might miss, something that's spawning. So it probably is 35. But then of
Hmm.
those, 4, 5, looks like 12 of them are not giving out tournament packs. Okay, so let's say that's 23 dailies in the 23 dailies in tournaments, right?
Yeah, and
Now
every
you've got
weekly at this
drafts.
point. Yeah.
Well,
No,
you've
yeah.
also got daily drafts, okay? And
Yeah.
there are another, let's see. Well, let's count the ones that are giving out tournament packs again, right? Like 10, 13. Okay, so there are probably another 20. Uh, okay, so there are 43 daily tournaments that are giving out packs, right? Um, and then weeklies,
I counted 24 weeklies.
24 weeklies on the standard tournaments, and then
Yep.
on the drafts, is it exactly 3 a day, or are there? No, no, looks like there are a couple extras there again because there's like 4 Fridays, 4
Mhm.
Saturdays, 4 Sundays.
Yeah, so you're probably
So
looking at 27,
24.
28 there.
So 24.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So there are 48 weekly tournaments, right?
Hmm.
Okay. So for a weekly tournament, you're getting 16 silver packs, right?
Yep.
Daily tournaments, you're getting 8, and of course you know, you're getting
Oh wait, it's
8.
ninth. It's
What?
ninth through 16th that gets a silver. So that's
Yeah, so that's 8, right? So 8,
okay.
times 7 a week, right?
Yep. Hmm.
Okay. Um, so I'm getting 3,176 silver packs per week that are given out.
Hmm.
Okay. Now, so that's 3,176 a week. Okay. And then right now there are how many silver tournament cards in the game? Okay, thank you. Stratico is saying it's is August 5th was both
Was
the refresh and the new tournament packs. Um, well, I don't think it's. I think it's even without the falling player base. I think that's what I'm kind of going to show you is just given the numbers, it's sort of inevitable. Because the thing about the tournament cards, so like basically every card in the game, there's no reason for a team to own more than one apart from like some kind of mission spec, right?
hmm.
Um, Unless you manage to find the Combinator Ozzie Smith or something. Uh, but barring combinators, as I think was the intent. Okay, so here you go. Um, right, so tournament edition, right?
We
Why
have
can't I type?
30. I count 30 silvers right now.
Yeah, so there were, well, you see there were 10 silvers in batch one, right?
Hmm.
Okay. And yeah, batch two, as you say, was bigger. Uh, there were 20. Okay. So that means that with 3176 per week, right? Essentially, if people distribute them evenly, and I know they won't distribute them evenly at the very beginning because some of them are better than others, but if
Hmm.
people distribute them evenly, you're pulling about 160 copies of every single silver each week. So if you now ask, how many teams in the game are active enough to kind of want tournament cards, if that were 160, then basically by the end of a week, kind of everybody's got everything they want, right? Um, at this point, we're what, 6 weeks then since a refresh? So that
Yeah, six and
means
change.
so that means basically there are roughly 1,000 copies of every silver tournament card out there. Again, it's probably not even. Probably it's more than 1,000 of, you know, the ones that are best, and probably, maybe 600 or 700 of the ones that, you know, because again, even the ones that are best, once you have one and once you can't really sell one, there's no reason to pull it, right?
Yep.
Okay. So I think the reason the values dropped is just that simple. It's, there are 1,000 copies of all of these cards in the game. And so, even if every single one were an important card, you wouldn't hold value. And of course, not everyone's an important card. Even on release, not all 20 of them played. And,
Yeah.
in the month and a half since release, we've continued to have power creep. And so some of them have been surpassed. And in general, actually, I guess I'm not sure it's actually fewer played this batch because there were 20 of them. Certainly, there were a lot more that didn't play on release than the previous batch. But just because it was a larger batch, I'm not sure there are actually fewer that played. Uh,
Yeah, I feel like they've been fine. I think it's more that the ones that were best were not significant advancements over the first set that made the second set feel potentially less strong, but at the end of the day, like a lot of the like more than I thought of the TV2's play. It's just
yeah,
that they weren't stronger, I think is the way I
yeah, that's
view it
fair.
personally.
Um, but I think generally the problem is just that you know you there are enough cards to saturate the market too
Mhm.
quickly. you know, I mean, how many active tournament teams are there? Well, actually, that we have a pretty good idea of just based on how quickly things fill, right?
Yep. Mhm.
Um, I mean, one way to say it is as an active player, I can typically get into probably 8 or 9 dailies a day. So I can
Probably
typically,
average,
so I
say.
can typically hit probably a third of the tournaments in the game.
Mhm.
Um, so there can't be too many more than 3 times sort of like filling a tournament that are actively playing dailies and weeklies. It can be a little more because not everybody is maxing out their slots.
Right.
So let's say it's 6 times. Let's say it's twice that, right? Um, so that most people that are actively playing, log on once a day and use all their slots or something like that.
Yeah. What I do
Okay,
with my alts.
okay, yeah, okay. So
Which
let's
is another
say,
factor to consider.
yeah, they're not all necessarily independent like humans.
Right.
Um, But that's okay for the market because as long as your
Sure.
alt's actively playing, your alt still has to buy cards.
Mhm.
Um, okay, but let's say that, it's 6 times. Okay, so maybe there are 500 or 600 accounts that are actively playing tournaments and want tournament cards. What that means is if every single silver card is relevant and every single one is then being pulled at like roughly the same rate, then essentially a new tournament batch, no matter how strong it is, a new tournament batch is going to last 3.5 weeks in silver, right?
Which feels about right.
And if it's uneven, so that say only half the cards are desirable, then basically it lasts maybe a little bit over half as long because some people are going to prioritize like pulling a new card over pulling something to sell, um, but roughly half as long. So I think the point is you could make these silver cards, just absolutely dominant, best in the game. And it would still be the case that you can't make a silver batch that lasts more than 3.5 weeks if it's a 20 card batch. That's just the number of cards that are being given out, right? And if you look at sort of some of the others, okay, so gold is going to be a little better, right? Um, or there 20, there are again 20 gold cards, but the drop rate is half what it is. So if every gold card is good, then the gold cards would last twice as long, right?
Mhm.
Um, they weren't, right? I mean, it wasn't the case that all 20 of these played. A couple of these, I think we didn't actually rate them on stream just because the various stuff going on. But there were a couple like this scooter, I think never was anywhere close to playing, for example.
Yeah.
So not all 20 played. Um, but even so, that's roughly what the value is going to be, if that kind of makes sense. Um, so I don't think this is a question of even the quality of the cards, right? Because everything that I just said is independent of the quality of the cards. You could make it so that every single silver card, essentially played in league. I mean, maybe league's a little different because maybe there are a few extra teams that want league cards that don't play tournaments. Um, you could make it so that every single silver card, was playing in diamond tournaments and was that overpowered. And it would still be the case that within 3.5 weeks, the cards are worth nothing because they're just anyone that wants to buy them has bought them, right?
Your supply and demand.
Yeah, I mean, in the same way that like one of the most overpowered cards that we've had this cycle was that Bagwell, like
Hmm.
the bronze. But it never had a high price simply because there were kind of enough copies to saturate the market. It was kind of given out in a way that virtually every active tournament player in the game had one from the get-go. So you just weren't going to be able to sell it. And I don't have a problem with that for the Bagwell. I think that was the intent, right? The intent was to design a card where sort of all of the tournament players were getting something that felt like a reward. Um, so I think the intent was to like make a card that everybody who plays tournaments was going to have and was going to be a useful tournament card for a while. Um,
Hmm.
but the point I'm trying to make is simply making a card good doesn't actually increase its value. As you say, it's still a supply and demand thing. And I don't think there's anything you can do with tournament cards that's going to keep value past that point. Your only two options are you refresh often enough to keep value up, or you you know, or you give out fewer. And making something like a tournament shop, I also don't think is really going to help. Unless the idea of a tournament shop is essentially that you're going to let people sort of exchange, winning a bunch of silvers for like winning a diamond.
Yeah, that's more
Um,
the idea with the shop for sure.
but honestly, I would have done this much differently. Um, like just from a game design point of view, I don't understand why tournament cards need to have batches. You know, having batches always creates this problem that on release, in order to make a card last at all, you have to make it vastly overpowered on release. And then even if it's vastly overpowered on release, at some point it becomes kind of a worthless reward because power creep has beaten it. You know, so even the best of the TB2 cards from release, kind of aren't really that important or often aren't even in metas right now. And that's even before you talk about the combinator thing, which accelerates that,
Mhm.
right? Um, but I guess I don't understand why they have to be in batches. You know, for everything else, the way the power creep works is there's a weekly or now in some cases more often than weekly content release. I don't see why, just as we release different kinds of packables and we release different kinds of mission cards and we release, things like that, I don't see why we couldn't be releasing tournament cards on a weekly basis. And you just gradually kind of power creep the tournament pools the same way you gradually power creep everything else. So every week there's always a newest thing to go after, basically.
Yeah, it's a great point.
Um, and I don't see why it would be harder from a coding point of view either. All the coding is doing is it's getting a list of tournament cards and making a pack out of them. So yeah, I don't see why you couldn't do it that way. But I guess that's the design choice. Um, Either way, though, I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't think kind of the lack of people paying for tournament cards is just is actually a reflection of the quality of the card, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think the other thing to consider is, maybe something like that could and or should be done for silver and arguably gold, but the high dive especially, like the upper tier stuff, the fact that for the most part it was weaker relatively and less desirable, I feel like certainly has affected the top end because of that lower drop rate, less, apt to be scaled out quickly and everybody, hit that equilibrium.
Right.
I don't necessarily think we're there with the high diamonds and low diamonds. Of course, low diamonds are always going to be difficult, in my opinion, just because either you make a low diamond that plays in high diamond or you're in a significantly niche market. So I don't think it's the end of the world that those are how they are. But I mean,
Yeah.
the high
Yeah.
diamonds still just generally like those are the ones that I feel like you could make the argument the strength of the cards is still a larger factor for them because I mean, if you win a high diamond right now, you're probably happy to get 30 or 35K for it.
Yeah,
Which
I think I think it's a factor on release, but the problem is, you know, by a month and a half after release, I mean, how many cards in general are relevant a month and a half after their release?
sure. And I guess that may be the difference in that's where the player pool shrinking may be more felt at this point because if you have I don't want to just make a number up, but let's say a third or half or whatever of the player base still active for this set, well, that's just half as many people that care about the cards that are good.
Right.
So even if it's mathematically still going to be relevant, everything else equal, well, the
Yeah,
demand has just been cut in half.
that's true too. So then it lasts half as long, basically.
Right. So it's like
Um,
artificially lowered the lifespan of them. But like you said, I mean, we've definitely kicked it up on power creep as well in certain areas more. So that's part of it.
yeah, but that's where I think just a gradual release would help.
Yeah,
The other thing is, you know, I do think a lot of this is part of the intent of the game design, and I mean, it's not necessarily the set of choices I would have made, but it seems very clear that the game design this year, part of it is that tournament rewards and generally things that are aimed at tournament players are going to be weaker than things that are aimed at people putting points into packable cards.
yeah.
You
I mean,
know,
I think it's fairly. I don't really think there's a significantly strong argument against that at this point.
okay,
At least
so
not one that I've heard.
yeah, I mean, whether I think I've been open about thinking I don't think that's particularly good for the game, you know, but that seems to be clearly a decision that's been made, right? Um, yeah, just radical. I think. I mean, combinators are kind of going to be an issue. I mean, also, even if there are tournaments without combinators, the problem is if the qualification, the PTCS has also been something which is again aimed at people that have these big packable cards rather than aimed at tournament players. So the way the PTCS was advertised a couple years ago and then really last year, I thought made a lot of sense. Yeah, I see Laszlo's comment as well. Yeah. Um, so the intent of the PTCS, I thought actually was really good if they could pull it off. The idea was to kind of try to think about OTP, in the direction of an esport. And if you want to have an esport, you want to have a regular format where you're challenging people, you're looking for the best players in the game, you're giving them kind of a competitive outlet to kind of make sure they all go at it head to head, and you create a high profile event that you can stream and use to kind of grow the game, right? Um, and part of what they did, which I think was really successful with this last year, and to some extent the year before, but last year they really expanded it and I think did well, was they created formats where you really felt like the people that were going to do well in the PTCS were generally the strongest players. The kinds of formats that really lend themselves to strong players are ones where, first off, it should be a format that kind of people haven't really seen before, so that you actually have to figure out kind of how to play it instead of just look at data. And second, one where generally, most of the players or all of the players in the player pool have access to all the critical cards. So that it's not just a question of, so that's not just a question of like whoever spent the most wins. And they had a lot of good formats like that last year. And that's again something that they've really gone away from this year. That, the PTCS and PTS, yeah, it's Radical, that too. They announced there would be no release cards the week of PTCS, and the reason for that, I think, was again to help with this esport idea. That if you're trying to create something which is, sort of a challenge for everybody in the game to construct and build really good rosters and then manage them well the day of the tournament, and you're trying to say, I want to select for the best managers, you don't want to create something where people kind of have to have points to spend right now in order to get into it, right? This year, instead, the formats have generally been more modern formats, more open type formats or sort of caps with very high cap numbers, so they're effectively open, and generally things where it's card quality rather than manager quality that's winning. And I think we're seeing that in the teams that make deep runs as well, right? Um, like this past PTCS was the first one that really kind of had a historical format that was fairly different from modern, and even there, that was kind of mitigated by a combination of the exact choice of year, the choice of park, and then kind of making basically all of the formats fairly open, right?
Yep.
Um, I mean, that's a good question. So I guess if this is the first year you started playing, right?
Yeah, I think I got in maybe late February, maybe early March from 24. Like it was, yeah, this is definitely, the first year that I'm going through everything.
Okay. So had you created, like, did you feel like you had trouble figuring out how to create a roster for this format, given that it was different than the other things that were out there, or did you feel like it was fairly straightforward?
I mean, for me, I did some coding things to kind of give myself an idea of how certain cards would play, etc. But yeah, I mean, I have not played a whole lot of dead ball stuff, even with the tournaments that I know it wasn't truly dead ball. Yeah, I mean, it was one of those where I certainly didn't know exactly what to expect, and what I found interesting was that the teams that I assembled that more closely resembled a modern team, as opposed to the rosters where I made the mistake of going super heavy against and basically just punting P home run, were the teams where I was out very quickly because I didn't effectively understand that between the park and the year. I mean, I saw all the stats and everything, but there were still going to be enough home runs that you could not just blindly run 40 P home run guys. Like it would have needed to be 1909 kind of a thing for that to
Yeah,
play. And so, like you said, they chose the year and park to make it to where all of these cards that have been released, even the 60s and what have you, still played, and the power was still enough. Especially, I'm sure on the top end, I didn't play in diamond, or I wasn't open, but I don't have any really good cards because that's what I do. But there's still enough power that it mattered. So your meta pitchers most everywhere were still generally great.
I think the other reason for that is the places that it might have mattered. One of the things that they've done because of combinators and because it kind of forces this is they've had this rapid power creep, but it hasn't been a rapid power creep with kind of distinctive shapes. That because they've had so much trouble figuring out how to model their own game, basically. If you don't understand what cards are good and you need to make sure you power creep something, you just give it more points of everything.
Hmm.
But the thing
There's
is,
like
if
3 shapes that they release for bats on the high end
yeah,
that I've seen anymore.
but the problem is if you're just giving it more points in everything, it doesn't matter what era it is. If I have more points in everything, I'm going to be better in any era.
Yep.
Maybe the gap is bigger in modern, or maybe the gap is bigger in dead ball, but just deciding which of two cards to pick, you know, you pick the card with more points everywhere. Um, and it's a similar thing where with combinators, I mean, there's several design issues I think that have made it less fun. I finally gave up on combinators a couple months ago just because it wasn't just buying them, you have to then level them. And then that whole mini game is painful.
The
Um,
click simulator, baby.
but you know, so that whole problems is out there. But one of the other things is that combinators actually make it much less interesting to construct a roster because you've basically committed yourself to investing in kind of this particular card, and it might fit the tournament, it might not fit the tournament, but it now has so much more points than its competitors that regardless of whether it fits, you're going to play it. It's just sometimes it hits the tournament and sometimes it doesn't. Um, so I think the problem is that they've kind of ended up with these formats that have gone away from roster construction problems and they've instead made it purchasing problems. That what you really want is you want to either have purchased and invested in the right cards for the format, or if you are willing to have a budget so that you're just going to, invest in everything, that's the other option, right? If you invest in everything, you always will have invested in the right card for the format. Um, but it makes it tougher. So I don't know how you solve this sort of with the combinators, but the direction I really would like to see them go for all of these, I'd like to see them go in a direction that kind of is encouraging the competitive play rather than encouraging, you know, the other aspects, right?
Yeah. And I
Um,
just don't think we're going to see that, at least not for 25. I just don't think we're going to see it.
no, I agree, and I think it's the same thing as, just with the tournament rewards, right? The rewards that they give out even for a PTCS or PTMS, in the same week they're making sure to put out packables that are stronger.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
so there's kind of no window in which a tournament-based team really is able to compete, in the difficult part of the league.
Yep.
So, so I think that's the plan, and I think that's also the reason that you're not seeing as much in the tournament scene. There are several prominent big spenders that didn't previously play tournaments where last season I actually saw them start to play tournaments because they realized the tournament rewards were going to be relevant. Uh, and so they kind of had to try to learn to construct tournament rosters and not just league rosters if they wanted to be good league teams. And this year that's not true. So, it's part of the game design.
Yeah.
Um, but I think this all contributes. So, uh, but the effect is sort of that you're sort of dumbing down the roster construction. It's the same as like I think if I go back and look at some of these draft formats, that we've talked about, Again, a lot of the draft formats are going away from skill based and going towards, these other. Here, I don't necessarily. I can add the weeklies as well, but if you look at the draft formats, kind of they're going away from skill based things and going a lot more towards sort of lottery based things.
Right. It's like the positional ones, which I enjoy because apparently I'm just bad at drafting at this point. But you know, it, for the most part, when you do the positional one, it's pick the two or one newest card at the position next round, and who wins the RNG of getting more meta cards than that versus not.
Right. Yeah, there isn't kind of a way to like construct a roster around your weaknesses. I think the really good draft formats are ones where the idea is that the draft presents you with some problem, some kind of imbalance, and you have to kind of figure out a way to construct a roster that, works around that, right?
Hmm.
But that you have to have the option to work around it. So,
Yeah, and it's
yeah,
not like you're going to unless, if you have a good draft in that draft, it's not going to matter what your silvers were. It's almost
probably not.
irrelevant.
Yeah. Um, and there are a couple others that at least there is one trick to, and you have to solve. But then as soon as you solve it, then it's random. Right. So, for
Yep.
example, the hitters first, I think we had talked about a bit. The
Yeah.
big thing with the
13th.
hitters first is if you can find a way to get a 13th pitcher, you have a real good shot. And if you can't, there's not too much you can do to fix it. So you just need a two-way player. Um, anyway, I'm trying to think
Pitchers
what
got a bunch.
else. Yep. Trying to think what else. I don't know, anything with the PTCS to review otherwise. I mean, um, not
Other
too
than the fact
much,
that
right?
that Negro League set was incredibly strong.
It was. You really needed it to kind of do well on the high end.
Oh yeah, I can't even imagine.
You know, the draft we did well. We got an Elmer Smith with that draft we did on stream.
Hey, nice.
Um, I guess I got a McGraw for the gold, but that was a lot of luck.
Yeah, the guy that you beat in the semis did not have a roster set. Like
It was
he had
that was not
players.
a wonderful roster. Yeah.
No. And then and I know we talked about this off stream, but like I know it's RNG, but the way my team is constructed was constructed for that with my bats, specifically just the combinators that I have. Like I have Rios, I have Torrey Hunter, I had Vinny Castilla, I had a couple others. Like that team had no business not murdering any left-handed pitcher it ever saw. And yet when I lost
Yeah, and you
one
lost to a
five
very
to that,
left-handed team.
yeah, he ran 2 out of 3 lefties, neither of which were combinators, and his offense was, worse than mine, which is fine. Like, I've put a lot of work into my gold roster at this point, and it was just I mean, it just is what it is. I've learned to accept it with this game. Just when you're at that stage of that level that you can just taste the Elmer,
Yep.
and no amount of micro is going to change the fact that you know the guy that you faced didn't even bother to set up rosters, and yet he made the semis. And the guy that I faced arguably had a
Well, not
suboptimal
only to
team. I
make the
think.
semis, I think he was up. I looked after. I think he was up 3-0 or 3-1 on me. I was away most of the day because I went to the
Oh
Mizzou game.
goodness.
Um, but apparently, the key game that I needed to win that series, the most important like offensive thing we did in that game was in the top of the ninth. For some reason, my manager decided to go ahead and let Billy Wagner bat, and he hit a home run.
Of course.
Um,
In that format, no less.
in that format, Billy Wagner hit a home run, and that was what sealed the deal.
Yep,
So clearly, that was all managerial skill, right? I mean,
obviously.
you
It's a
you
skill
you
issue.
wouldn't believe the sliders that I set on Billy Wagner. I set his hit home run slider to max. You see, um, yeah,
You really got to dig to find that one. It's in there
yes,
though.
it's one of the hidden ratings.
Of course. You got to go change game files.
Yeah, no, I mean seriously, what I think we've always told people is, there are a lot of things that you can do that will ensure you cannot win a tournament, but
Right.
there's really nothing you can do that'll ensure you win one. You know, the best you can do is you can keep giving yourself chances by making sure that all of your rosters actually have a shot to win.
Yeah.
Um, and you don't shoot yourself in the foot. And if you manage to do all of those things, then, you at least have a real shot.
Then you still
You're
have to
not going
win a
to win
bunch of
every time. You
championships in
still
a
have
row.
to also get the RNG. There's no way around getting both.
Yeah. It's
Um,
like my Iron Weekly squad this week lost in like 6 games to a non-combinator roster. It's gonna
yeah,
happen. It
yeah,
happens.
absolutely.
You're
Um,
gonna lose, 20 coin flips in a row or whatever.
and a lot of the time, the roster you lose to might be one that also has taken itself out of having any chance to win in like
Oh,
a full
absolutely.
tournament.
Oh, especially in a tournament like that. Like there's they probably lost. No, I think they beat
Here, I'll put
Stratico
this in
next
the
round.
chat. Actually, this is yeah,
We
because
lamented
we
together
because we
about it.
actually came up with sort of a little quiz, but basically just something where if you just want to check, have I done the things that at least give my roster some chance? Uh, this is kind of a pretty good checklist. This doesn't include the, did you buy combinators? Did you get strong cards kind of thing, right? Um, but this is just more like, given what I have, am I maximizing my chances? And if you're not doing the things on this list, then, probably you're not.
Yep.
Um, and if you're at least doing all of these things every time you put a tournament roster in, well, then you're not shooting yourself in the foot. And so then it's just up to whether, you also get the good RNG. Um,
Scanning this is the set pitcher. Oh, what's the remove
which
when
is it?
tired? Aggressive tiredness hook.
Oh, well, in general you want to think about sliders. I mean, if that's one you want to set, that's one to think about because the trade-off is, uh, of course, you're going to use more pitchers if you're pulling a pitcher earlier,
Sure.
right? Exactly. You still fail the first step. You have 26 players on your roster.
I don't know
Yeah.
that there are any tournaments I play right now that I don't click aggressive tiredness hook for starters. That just feels like you're asking to have him come up in his turn next time and be at like 85%. But
I
I'm
could
sure there's
certainly see
scenarios
that.
where that's not right.
Yeah.
Especially, yeah, it's just like because again, even I haven't put the effort in to like sit there and say, okay, I'm gonna run out. Like this is something you could probably do in quicks over a day and just like get it nailed to where you could have like 553 stamina starters and set them at certain pitch limits and see what the pitch limit is, and maybe that's a arguably optimal way to do it. I just haven't put the effort in to get that granular
It's not as much
with
the
my
pitch limit
managing.
as just how many, if you're running five starters that are in the 50s, then in modern era, there's a good chance you're going to end up, especially with the
Oh
aggressive
yeah.
tiredness hook, you're going to need a 13th arm.
Hmm.
And you have to decide, am I willing to run fewer platoons as well as, kind of figure out how to build a depth chart? Because if you only have four backups, one's still going to be a catcher.
Hmm.
So, you're always going to have to figure out how to cover all the positions.
Right,
right?
and I play a
So
lot of caps, so I love the two-way guys for that reason. Like, there's usually a two-way guy on my roster somewhere.
yeah, so if you've got a way to get a 13th arm and still have 14 hitters, that solves the problem. Um,
Mhm.
but I think otherwise, it's just kind of worth keeping in mind that aggressive tiredness hook isn't free.
Yeah. No, I've
It,
certainly learned to
yeah.
appreciate stamina the longer I've played this
So
game.
I'm not saying it's a mistake. I do tend to run it a fair bit, uh, but I don't think I'm actually running it on every single starter, just for exactly this reason that there's some guys that I just want to make sure they pitch deep enough into a ball game that I'm going to be able to get by with 12 pitchers. Uh,
Yeah. No, and especially in Iron, I have learned the hard way to appreciate stamina, which again, a lot of the newer cards that have been released have had better stamina. Like,
yeah,
I feel like early cycle, it was a lot more rough.
I'm
But I mean,
also well. Usually there's a trade-off because uh, often stamina is actually overweighted in the overall rating.
mhm,
So that means often the most effective pitchers are going to be very low stamina guys, and that's going to be part of the decision to make.
right, especially in the lower tiers like that.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, obviously everywhere, but no, and I just think it's funny, and there was a big discussion topic on main Discord this week that I'm sure you read all of and enjoyed.
Oh
Um,
yes, I enjoy my participation in the main Discord.
like it was talking about uh, new players and learning and whatever, and I'm not really interested in going into that whole debate, but I just found it fascinating that I went a decent amount of time playing this game. Like, I didn't even know what that button really did.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see it and think about it, but until you really have it explained or what have you, there's no learning to play this game is an adventure
Well, it's an
unless you
adventure, and I mean, this is kind of why we've been doing the stream in the past, is to try to help a bit with that. I think it's kind of unfortunate that the direction it's gone is that I think pretty much all of the people that find the stream at this point are more experienced players.
right. Of
Um,
course, the reality is like, and this is I didn't really engage too much in the discussion, but like the people that want to get better will find the information. Again, I have not been playing this game for that long, but I found a lot of the information partially just because I wasn't afraid to message people and ask.
right.
And, you're going to figure out who knows what they're talking about and who does it pretty quick. And so to me, that was part of it is if you want to learn, you're going to figure it out. But I still definitely think that not everybody has as much free time as I have. Not everybody's crazy like I am.
Well, and
And
there's,
so,
but I think there's also this assumption that, um, in general, that sort of affiliate streamers are effectively being endorsed as experts, and I do think that's also part of the issue. Um, I don't have a solution for it, you know.
yeah, and like, even those streamers, even if they're not, let's say, as analytically minded and as nuanced as you or I are with this game, like I still have watched several of those streams and they do cover the basics. Um, but to kind of to take that next step, especially can be very difficult. But then also, again, if you're not watching like laptop does a really good job of a lot of this, but it's one of those where he's not going to cover all of the material every day. Like, you just kind of have to be there and absorb it. And kind of what I figured out is a lot of people that have been playing for a long time, they may not even think about some of the things that they do that new people have no idea about.
No, that makes sense, and I think one of the hardest things, I mean, it's hard for an experienced player too, is to figure out when you lose, why are you losing? You
Yes.
know, I mean, this reminds me of the thing that was like hardest for me as a poker player. Uh, you know, especially because in poker, often when you're losing pots, you're not losing them at showdowns. So you don't even know if you made the right decision.
Yep.
Um,
Maddening.
but like when I was kind of playing for a living for a while, you know, the ideal setup is that you're going to have a winning day about two-thirds of the time. If you're winning more often than that, it just means you should be playing sort of tougher, higher stakes games.
Mhm.
But if that's the case, if you play poker for a couple of months, you're going to actually have a losing week just because the variance of it. Um, but of course, if your game starts to slip, if you develop leaks, that's also going to like cause you to, that's also going to kind of cause you to lose, right? Um, so it's really tough to figure out the difference. I mean, it's the same thing like you were just mentioning with kind of how this gold PTCS went, right? Um, so something you don't know the answer to at this point. If you run that tournament back a bunch of times, do you actually win a lot? Or is there actually something you did wrong in roster construction
Yeah.
where you probably should have done something differently? Um, you don't know because we ran it one time, right?
Right. And the only way, again, that's a scenario where I honestly would kind of love for, let's say just for the discussion, like for the whenever they do a tournament refresh, they tend to make previous PTCS something like if they were to make that gold and then you could run it and then you're like, oh, okay, this is how I approach that situation. And then you can kind of bank that. And, I'm still just going through a lot of this stuff for the first time. So that's kind of,
Right,
an adventure for me. Whereas people like you and people who've been playing for a long time, like they can just look at a format and just they're like, home runs are still going to matter in that tournament, either because they've done the math or just because they have the experience. And it doesn't take running a giant model. Sometimes just look at it and be like, no, this is
right.
how I should build the roster.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and Samando was mentioning, I mean, look, I think, so from my point of view, I have no objection to people either posting or not posting about our streams in the main Discord. I'm not there to take part in the discussion, but that doesn't mean people can't have a discussion. Uh, doesn't mean other people can't do streams. One of the things is that Afo and I have always felt is there are a lot of experienced players that could do a stream like ours. Uh, Not all of whom are disinvited from the main Discord. Um, I think maybe we've been a little bit more willing to like put stuff out there. Because there is this idea that you put a lot of time into the game and you sort of build your secret sauce, and then like that's your advantage and you don't want to give it away. Um, but I think there should be a lot of experts on the main Discord who are happy to post if you can kind of draw that out of them. Um,
I found that even if people don't want to post, it all out to Kingdom Come and everybody, you message them separately. People are a whole lot more likely to have just a really open, honest conversation with you. That's how I've gotten to know most of who I would consider the top 10 players in this game is just, I'll face them in a tournament or something. I'll message them on the side and then we just have good conversation about the game and I learn stuff. Don't be afraid to
yeah,
message people.
and that makes sense. So, but yeah, I said I wouldn't have an objection to, you know, obviously I don't post something on the main Discord when we stream because, well, you know,
Yeah,
um,
I also did not.
but uh, but I don't have an objection to it. It's, you know, um, I mean, it's funny. I actually, so there are things that would be nice to be on the main Discord for, just in terms of there's some announcements that really still are only made there. Uh, but in every other respect, I've actually been a lot happier since being off of it.
It's significantly slowed down at this point, which is sad.
Well, that is part of the deal with kind of keeping certain ideas out, right? Um,
Well, that Babtron's gone. Rest in peace.
Yeah, I thought he felt this year's game was perfect, but you know. Anyway,
Cards?
sure. Should we talk about some cards? I think we had
Let's talk
intended
about
for
some
this to
cards.
be sort of a short stream and get to cards.
We all
Uh,
know better.
yeah, and I was supposed to be like in Tulsa tonight, but since I'm around, yeah,
Oh,
let's do some cards.
yeah.
Actually, you know what? Maybe I can go to the Mizzou game tomorrow.
Oh, nice.
Um, I think is it possible that actually this is going to be like the highest profile game of the week?
Oh, I have no idea. I have not been paying attention to college football. But you know what is interesting, just tidbit, the last college football game I attended that I think most recently was Texas A&M home for Missouri, Johnny Manziel's last game at College Station.
Oh,
And I
oh,
missed
that's right. You're an A&M guy, is that right?
yeah, that was a fun game.
I'm trying to remember.
Family
Do
was
we
all
do we
there.
play A&M this year? Because I know one of the things with the bigger
Ah,
conferences is you miss
now
half
that
the
it's
teams on your schedule,
20,000
right?
teams. Yeah,
Yeah.
since half of the football teams in college football are in the SEC now, it feels.
No, okay, no. We play at A&M October
Huh?
5th.
Okay. I will be in Houston with some friends watching that one at like a little home tailgate thing. I'll be at the LSU game this year. That's the one I've my family and I are all going to go see because we just love losing to LSU. I don't want to talk about it. Man, we love losing to them. And like so my family when we do Thanksgiving, we go to Shreveport because that's where that side of the family is from. And so for the last, you know, 15 years, I go out there, or less, what, like 10 years since we stopped playing Texas. We play Louisiana that day, and we usually get paddled. So my entire family on that side is all Tiger fans, and I'm just like,
I see.
okay.
I mean, LSU's got to be a tough place to play, though.
Oh, Death Valley, they call it that for a reason. Whoop. What's up, C Duncan? I seen you in the other chat. Yeah, gig 'em. All right, we'll get the cards, or else I'll get
Yeah.
sidetracked more.
All right, all right. Oh, actually, well, speaking of getting sidetracked, no, no, but just
I'll
since you
be.
meant no, I will say since you mentioned cards, I now finally like am here, have some stuff that arrived, have a car. At some point before the end of the season, I think I want to try to catch both the cards and the Royals. If anyone's got a
Mm.
suggestion for like a good way to do that, definitely love to hear it. You know, it's a bit of a trip, but it's like a couple hours or something, I think, to each of them. Um, so hopefully not too bad. Oh, and Stratico's asking about like sliders. So maybe okay, we should probably rate at least one card, and then maybe we should talk about sliders.
My sliders are pretty close to yours, or at least whatever I've seen you post in the past. So we won't have a large disagreement. I still, again, some days I think they matter, and some days they don't. It's
There are a couple that seem to matter.
yeah,
Uh,
and
anyway, all
just
right.
like everything else in this game, you're more likely to mess something up
Yeah,
than make a significant improvement to your team.
but all right. Let's actually rate a couple of cards, and then we'll come back and talk about sliders. That sound fair?
Oh yeah, no, this first one's gonna be a doozy. It's
Yeah,
fun.
Machia Pet. I think I could. I mean, even if I have to kind of pay a bit for tickets, I figure if you're traveling a couple hours to go to the game, like for all I know, I'm going to pay $30 to park at one of these, right? Or is that even underestimating it these days? I don't know because I guess um, I never used to live somewhere where you drive to games.
Hmm.
In Boston, I'd always like take the T or something, or you could even walk. Uh, and then when I was in LA, you just don't try to drive to see a Dodgers game.
Yeah, I can imagine that's not a great idea. I'm in Texas, so everything's forever spread out and there's all kinds of parking. So yeah, usually you're paying for that. 'Cause I usually end up going to Astro games, even though I'm not an Astro fan. They're just closest. So I do
Makes
not enjoy
sense.
going to games at Minute Maid. They nickel and dime you everywhere. It is not a great experience in my opinion. I far enjoy going to Rangers games. It's always been more relaxed and not like at Minute Maid, like at a certain point in the game, if there are open seats, like you can just kind of walk into the lower sections and get a better seat, and no one really cares because someone's sitting there. Not at Minute Maid. Like they tell you to get back to your nosebleed peon.
I see. Yeah, I haven't been to either of those parks. Trying to think. I think I've been to Busch Stadium a while ago, and I've never been to Kauffman, but I've heard really good things about it.
And I haven't been to the new Ranger Stadium yet, so I guess I can't really say that about that one. But the old one, I really enjoyed.
So, Round Rock Express. So where is Round Rock?
North of north of Austin, I think. Pretty sure. Yeah, I lived there once. I should know.
Oh, well, if you live there, you should definitely know where it is.
Yeah. No, it's north of Austin,
Uh,
like just outside Austin. It's
all
technically in
right.
Williamson County.
Sounds about right. All right. All right. I downloaded a card list. Let's take a look at a couple of these. Um, Hold
First one's
on.
going to be, I'm very curious to see your opinion on this
Well,
first
I
card.
seem to have done something that makes all the cards ineligible. Let me see what I. Ah, that's what I did. Okay, let's try that again. Had it set for max year of 1700 or so, apparently. Little typo. All right, let's try that again. Um, so what do we got here? Bill Bailey, huh?
They misspelled Edwin Diaz.
Um, hmm, that's a distinctive shape. I'll give you that.
Yep. Can't
Okay, so we're
remember
getting a few
any.
more questions about sliders. Let's do a thing on sliders at some point. Maybe we should get a couple cards in, but then do a thing on some of
Yeah,
the sliders if that works.
sure.
So, all right, let's try that again. So my
My high
guess
diamond Joe Rosenthal
is,
reward finally sold for 30,000. By the way,
all
just
right,
submitted
there you
today.
go.
Yeah,
So
30.
my guess by eye is it's going to be not quite enough control, but it's going to be really close. But let me see what the model says.
Yeah, that was generally my opinion. Um, you know,
Now the model kind of does want to try it, actually.
mine did not. It came in underneath, but I will admit that the some of the low control guys with a lot of stuff, a lot of P home run, have been who outperform relative to what I have. So it wouldn't shock me. But most of those guys are also poor control against a single hand, not both, which
So
is where
I've
I
got
think this
him
one's gonna.
walking about 6.3 batters per nine, which
Yeah, I wrote down 13% walk rate.
I think I've got it listed as per nine. I can try to convert it, but that it's a lot of walks.
Yeah.
Um, okay, that's even over 13%, right? Because he's probably going to
Okay.
face what? Even with that big walk rate, he's probably facing what, like 40 batters per nine? So that's probably like
Yeah.
almost 16% even.
Yikes.
It's a lot of walks. That I don't think there's any way around saying that that's a lot of walks. And not only a lot of walks, But the PBABIP doesn't even help a bit because, you might get some double plays or something. But he's not a ground
Right.
ball pitcher. Doesn't get double plays. Uh,
Yep.
but that's a fair number of strikeouts in iron when you have a lot of cards that have really low avoid K. So he is going to strike out a lot of hitters.
Yep.
He's going to keep the ball in the ballpark. Um,
I kind of want to try him in the pen if I got him. Like that's probably where I would run him.
so if you run him out of the pen, let's see, he's going to drop the sinker and the changeup, I guess. So he actually will get a stuff boost out of the pen.
Right.
Um, yeah, he will
Let's
get a
see.
stuff boost.
What is L5? So L5 is already 160 and 162. So not even sure how much the stuff boost would matter.
Um, it's not even as much the stuff boost as sort of helping out the control, right?
Right.
That at
And
L5, because one of the things the combinators are doing is they're flattening the shape a bit.
yeah, it just like you said, the control is so low that leveling the card up does not give a notable amount of control, which helps flatten. It's so jagged that it it needs a little more so that it gets a little more when it
Yeah,
happens once you start
so
to
the
add it.
control is a problem, especially because there are a lot of these iron cards. So the funny thing is, if I run him against like the May or June iron pool, I
Oh
don't I
Lord.
don't want to play him at all
Right.
because so many of the iron cards that were in the meta at that point sort of had like nothing but I. And now it's actually a little bit more balanced pool. We're seeing a lot of cards where they've traded some I for maybe power or something like that. You were talking about how much you wanted to run a card like Thorpe. This card will actually do fine against Thorpe.
Right.
So
But
yeah,
this
my
card's
model
really gonna
actually
struggle
does have
against
this as like
Pettis
the.
and
So my model kind of has this as the number 4 starter. Although the other thing that worries me, I think the 71 stamina may be a bit low. This is going
just
to
for
be an
how inefficient.
incredibly inefficient card. Uh,
Yeah.
so you might still only be getting 5 innings or 5.5. I don't think he's going 7 very often.
Yeah, I forgot I updated my iron stuff today. I'm trying to check it real quick, but
But having said that, yeah, I think this is a playable card. I think this is one I would try. And actually, this is exactly the kind of card where. So I'm looking at the combinator thing now. I don't even want to try to level anything at this point. But this is the kind of card where, if I found a cheap combinator, I might feel like taking a shot at it could be a really good deal because the kind of card a lot of people are going to be afraid to run, but probably does have enough points there.
yeah, let's see.
So actually, I
So
kind of like the idea of running him. Uh, oh,
I
I
have
also
him
assume what
as
1914, not a current franchise. So I assume he's also going to be a pain to
rough
level,
low.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, let me see what the teammates look like. Okay, there are two Bill Baileys actually. It looks like in the teammate finder. Let me see which Bill Bailey this is. Okay, no, that's not bad actually. So he's got 6 seasons with Jack Powell, 6 with Bobby Wallace, 5 with Bert Shotton, um, 4 with George Stone, Harry Howell, Roy Hartzell. I guess there aren't a lot of diamonds, maybe, but yeah, he might actually be boostable.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think this is one I would take a shot at actually. Um, other than the whole like I'm not buying any combinators because I'd have to level them thing.
Click simulator.
If you give me a version of the combinator that I can just pay points and level, maybe.
Right. Tournament points. Hey, just saying. It might be an interesting idea. Probably not. That's probably not a good idea, actually.
All right,
Yeah, I think
so
if
I
I had
think
an
I'd
L5,
have him as like a B or C.
I'm on the
Um,
lower end of that. He would make a pin for me. I'm not gonna buy this card for all the reasons we discussed. But yeah, I mean he would make the bullpen for me at the least. Again, that's partially a team construction consideration. Like I'm still a full right hand stack because I don't have Chris Short yet. And for all of the lefties we've gotten, Iron as a population is still being run very right handed heavy. So
Makes
running the
sense.
right handers generally is still paying off more. Chris Short is a different story, but like all the other like newer quality lefties are not doing well at all. I mean, incredibly poorly, underperforming any projection you can put out.
Yeah, I'm looking at
You
like my
know,
top 15. I've got three lefties on there, but the third would still be Brett Anderson, who probably needs to run out of the pen.
and I still never see Brett Anderson on my. Maybe it's probably because I filter him out. That's why.
Oh, you know what it is? It's because I have a combi of him and I didn't turn the combinator flag off.
Hmm.
Base version, he's not going to be up there anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
base
only
version,
looking
he's
at
gone.
L5 stuff.
No, I just by default had it set to grab like my card pool. So
Hmm. Yeah, but no, I think it's an interesting card. At the very least, I think it is a unique profile to release. Like it's I
yeah,
thought it was a good release.
the more I look at this at high level, I sort of want to be on the upper side of that.
Yeah,
All
no,
right, well, where do you want to put him then?
I'm okay with a C whatever.
I really think he's going to be better than that. Uh,
I mean, B minus if
all right, I'll give him a B minus. Um,
yeah, I think a level 5 of this is going to play on a team. I think this makes a team, so I'm not going to argue that.
all right, Ron Peranoski. Um, well, he's got home run suppression. He
That's about it.
very much has home run suppression. Um, yeah. Oh, and did I mention he
Uh,
suppresses homers? Because he's pretty good at that too.
yeah, I don't think I even ran this if I'm being honest.
I'll run it for completeness, but um, I
Yeah.
can't imagine.
Yeah,
Uh,
somebody ring the bell because we're talking about shape again, but this is just not a shape that has worked. I
well,
will say, and this is going to come up later, I don't have enough data on the low ends or what have you, but when you get up into diamond and above, I have seen some evidence that when you get above 120, that PBAP is when you start seeing outsized gains
yeah,
in
I was
hit
gonna say,
suppression.
I'm looking at this. My model actually kind of likes the card. I'm
So
surprised, but my model actually kind of likes this card. Um,
it is a lot of home run suppression.
well, but also the extreme ground ball. So so I think he is going to get double plays.
Hmm.
Um,
And he's got, I mean, 137 PBAP if it. See if I
wait, is it 137? This shows 125 here. Oh, you're looking at the level five again.
I'm in. Yeah, I'm in the shop.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we're below diamond or low diamond, like I'm always looking at L5. I still evaluate separately because you have
Well, there
mission,
are also two
whatever.
other things, right? So the big flaw with the card is the control, but
Right.
he's got huge stamina and he's got huge hold runners. So between that and kind of being a ground ball pitcher with a huge PBABIP, he is going to erase a lot of those walks. So yeah, I really want this to be probably like a stopper type for
Hmm.
me in bronze right now. I'm surprised it comes out that way. Uh, oh, that has to be wrong, doesn't it? Okay, there's another card that I like at base level, by the way, which I hadn't even looked at, but is popping up on the model. Um,
I had
did
all
I
my
just
stuff
type
turned
that
off, so I'm
wrong?
trying to load it right now.
Did I just type this? Oh, because I'm looking at the Combinator card shop. This live actually ends up kind of interesting. It bronze.
Is it Fleming?
No, is this Brian
Huh.
Abreu?
Oh, that card did not do well for me early in the cycle. I don't know if it's
No, no, with the
probably
re-rate. I'm
totally.
saying with the re-rate.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, just with this current re-rate.
All right.
Huh. Anyway, yeah, I think Paranosk is also going to be pretty playable. Um, I have a hard time giving a reliever like an A when they're pretty fungible, but
Mhm.
I could see him being like a solid B. Where do you have him?
I'm trying to load it right now. Let's see. Here. Uh, might not disagree with you as much as I thought. Oh wow.
Yeah, there's just a lot more. Like I have him
Okay.
in principle as like the top like L5
I don't have him that good, but
as
I
a card listed as
definitely have
reliever. I mean,
him.
I think their converted starters they'll do
Oh,
better.
okay. Yeah. Um, let's see.
But yeah, I want to
I'm
play him.
still I still like Addison Reed more by a smidge, but again, you're talking about 12 stamina over 25.
Yeah, I have
Yeah,
him. I have him read pretty similar, but like very close, and I have him tiny bit ahead.
yeah, and I bet he does come out ahead. That wow, I did not expect that.
Yeah, so I think again, I don't think it's an A just because it's pretty fungible, but I mean it could be if you feel that way. I think it's somewhere.
No, I think it's in the B range, but
All right, let's give him a
it's
B then.
a surprising B.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a good one. All right, Taffy Wright. So we're up to some low silver.
That was a bat. Yep.
He's got a bat, but not so much eye, huh?
Yeah, so what I wrote down on this one is that he kind of, from a production standpoint, maybe not a shape standpoint, is kind of in Larry Walker's VR bat, obviously less so VL. And what really kills this card is that unfortunately he misses the cutoff for the 1939 low silver. And I think it's close. I think his year is like 41 or 51 or something.
41, and I really
Yep.
hate releasing these cards from the 40s because 41's maybe okay. Um, but especially when, like once you get into like 43, 44, 45, it's such a watered down league that
Yeah.
you just end up with these weird outlier seasons that I think have to
Right.
be taken like a COVID season essentially.
Yeah. And, with the high A of OK, and I'm sure you've heard me say this before, silver, I love to say that silver is incredibly stuffist, is the term I use.
Yep.
Um, so for that, I could see him having some utility if you had an L5, especially maybe even in a cap, just because he's going to put the ball in play so much and again, potentially
Yeah, I
overperform
still
compared to how I project it, but I'm still I'm still playing Larry Walker over him, which is kind of his main competition that I
I think
saw,
there are a couple
among
others
others.
that are up there.
Sure.
Like I think, well, if you have a Bill Bean, I might even play Bean if you're playing it as a one-way
Mm.
card. Jerry Hairston's got a bigger bat, and I'm kind of often willing to just let somebody stand in left and pray. Um,
Yeah, what is it? Egan, that's the other big.
Hegan's another big bat. That one's more eye
Yeah.
heavy.
Yeah, I think
Um,
that's the one that if I were, I don't know if he's in chat, but Malachi from TBD, like we talk constantly about all this stuff, and he's one of the big silver players.
yeah, Hegan's up there, and then also this is a place that you can find a two-way card. So
Right. And you've got to have,
so
you
yeah,
can't have you can't platoon all three of your outfield spots. Like at least one of them in modern, at least the way I generally construct rosters, you need at least one two-way player, and there are more compelling platoon options. I feel like
I think
right
so.
now,
Yeah. Yeah. So I think like
which
I
is
might
really
even
cool.
I might even run a card like Kotsay both ways just to you know.
Right.
Um,
So it's one of those where not every card that you're going to be able to release is going to hit the format that it's in, which will keep coming up as a theme. Because I try to think about these cards, with that in mind. So all the little weird formats, because sometimes I'm telling you, like, ooh, it fits in that, which is perfect. Like
yeah.
you can't magically make this card in 1939 because I would imagine his season didn't look
Yeah. I
like
agree.
this in 1939. But you really wish you could have done that because this would be a great card for that format.
Yeah. But as it is, it's probably an F. I mean,
Yeah,
it's on the higher end of Fs, but I think it's probably an
right.
F on release, and then within a week or two, it just won't be. Yeah. All
Yeah,
right.
that's what I wrote down.
All right.
At the very least, you're just not going to invest money in this card
We got an
because it's just
Ellie
gonna. Yeah.
Maddox.
Yep. I pulled
Okay.
LE number 3 on this actually
All
and sold
right.
it because I'm
So I
chill.
guess at base, well, okay, so at base, I've got him looks like fourth. Mixed but
Yeah.
mixed in with a bunch of these tournament edition cards and stuff. But of course, he's
Yep.
way behind all the combinators. Uh,
It's almost word for word what I wrote down.
um, but there is one other thing I wonder here that would change my mind on this card,
Mhm.
and I don't own one. Uh, you own one, or did you sell it?
I sold it. I sold it for 50K, and I feel pretty good about that now, considering the L10's down at 22. I think I had the
I mean,
first sale
it's
at
100 copy silver, so I feel like it can't be a 50K card in general. Just
right. No, it was one of those where I just chucked it out there for a high number, and I was like, yeah, if it sells, it sells, and it
um,
did. So shout out to whoever bought Greg Maddox number 3.
but I gotta ask, what's the base running on this card?
I did not look. Oh, let's see. Do
Because
I
there
have that
aren't a
pulled?
lot of interesting pinch runner options in silver, especially in low silver. And you could very easily make a version of this card just pulling from like, historical data that's actually a huge base runner.
Oh, I'm seeing if I can pull the card list because I
Um,
obviously don't have that on my pictures. Moment.
this guy even stole all four bases he attempted after age 40. So,
Let's see. Oh, where is it? Limited edition LE 100.
but yeah, you see now there are like 14 people trying to sell it and one bid at 4K. Uh,
Right.
I bet if I put a bid of 4,500 up, I would get him. You know what? Let's do the
Which one?
experiment. I'm going to put a bid of
Mhm.
4,500 up. I will bet you I get him by the end of this stream. What do you think?
I'm not going to argue that. All right. Base running. I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
Am I certain I want to bid 4,500? Um,
Well, if you ever run any silver and you're not going to invest in combis, I would at least have this card for that reason. All right.
yeah, it's also
His base running's
88's.
41.
Oh, okay, that's too bad.
Yeah.
Um, or I guess it's really speed and stealing, but I assume if the base running's 41, the speed and stealing are also not going to be up there.
Yeah.
Um, that's too bad. All right, there goes my silly idea. Um, and the card's probably just an F because it gets clobbered by all the combinators, right? I mean,
Yeah. I mean, I just write down NA when it comes to like, if it's an LE or something like this, or like a mission card, I write down a base grade, and then for L5, I just write not applicable. So, I mean,
yeah,
again, I wrote down A for a base, like, for somebody that's choosing not to interact with combinators, or like for me, I don't really buy very many silvers. but I still play silver. Like I don't buy silver combinators, but I still play silver. And so if I'm trying to throw the card out there, get the silver qualification, etc., like if you pull this
I
card, you're
think
going to
it's
keep it. You're going to run it.
I think it's tough to qualify if you're not really investing in any combinators though. Like there
Well,
just
I just
aren't
do it
enough
on the
combi
silver
free
cap.
formats, right? I guess if you're there's a
Sure.
silver quick that has a combi limit of one, I think.
Yeah, and I get around it because I play the silver cap, and so I've got all of the cap, combis. So and it's a no chemistry tournament, and so I
Yeah,
just run a lot of the meta silver pitchers, and then everything else on my team is combinators. So it works, but like again,
yeah,
for most people, yeah, it's not going to be worth the effort. I'm very much the exception there. And
yeah,
again, I don't do as well in that tournament as I did, in like June when I won it, or was it May? I think it was sometime in mid-May. I think I won that tournament like 6 days
yeah.
in a row or
So
something.
Max,
Like when I was
I think you
not
can qualify. You can potentially qualify for the tournament just in one or two formats. So for
oh
most
yeah.
things, like you could probably qualify for silver if you just run the live every time. Um,
Oh, I
the
know my
problem
alt
is,
qualified for silver and gold this
yeah,
last PTS, just playing the daily early every day with just like basically tournament cards just for data collection.
yeah,
So
but
it
the
works.
problem isn't the qualification. The problem is
Nah, yeah,
you're
you're
then
gonna get
setting
run in the
yourself
first
up to
round.
play an iron tournament where you're now playing against the full combinator teams, and what's really not possible is going to be competing against them unless the format's very different than the previous formats.
100% agree. They always get rolled. I just
Um,
do it for fun.
so um, but qualification you definitely could do.
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, I guess it's probably just an F, which is
Yeah, all
we'll
things
get a good Maddox
considered.
later in the cycle.
Yeah, I mean, you could F plus it for whatever, but like, yeah, I mean, it's, for the people, and there's a good core of people that are playing silver that are 26 combinator squads. This is not going to be on the roster.
Yeah. How about Gallardo? Um, it's a little bit of a bat, I guess. We've seen a Gallardo with a better bat. Um, all right, where have you got Gallardo? Let me see what I've got him on.
I mean, I have this as an F minus, unfortunately. It's just
I
in this engine, there's just
I don't have him
no,
close. Yeah, he'll strike
yeah,
guys
there's
out. He will strike guys out.
right. The reality is the way this engine works, you're either in modern or even again
Yeah,
like the last PTCS, even if you're all the way down to 1920, what was it, 22 or whatever, like you're still going to give up home runs. And the further back you go to make the home runs worthwhile,
yep.
the stuff
The
is
stuff is
completely
yeah,
erased. And then you
and
get to
also
the point where,
the bat's not as good as it looks. One of the things we always
right,
kind of remind people is if you're going to run a two-way card, it needs to be better than your worst pitcher as a pitcher and better than your worst hitter as a hitter. Otherwise, it's not a two-way card.
right,
Um, and this kind of isn't really going to be either of them most likely. You know,
yeah,
even in a very low cap, uh, this bat's probably not as good as say Pujols.
right,
So there are cards that are close to free.
yep.
All right, what's next then? Dick
um,
Stewart. All right. So,
yeah, I had this one coming up just a little
is
short.
is this a bad enough first baseman that you're actually not willing to run him at first base?
I play Curly Foley right now at first in my Iron squad, so I'm probably not the best person to ask that question. If I want the bat bad enough, I'm just going to play it. Now, if it's any lower, this is right on the edge, I would
Right.
say.
Well,
But for me,
okay. To
yeah,
be
go ahead.
fair, the guy was called Doctor Strangeglove, and
I did not know that.
he does fit your Japan theme team. Um,
Drownings next, we go by. Oh no, we did miss him.
I think this
Oh wait,
might be the guy that
they're all
like a hot
72s.
dog
We'll get him next.
wrapper blew onto the field and he went over and like picked it up and like picked it up cleanly, handed it to someone in the stands and he got a standing ovation. Um, so anyway,
When I ran this, I thought it was a similar bat to Mantle, but it's not a switch hitter, so I liked that. And then if you're able to run a platoon, you know, there's so many platoon options that are going to beat it.
yeah, I've got Mantle ahead, but then there are also just some really big bats that came out recently, right? Or hold on,
Yeah.
let me actually he's 75, so those don't. Let me make sure I'm comparing him against the right set. Uh,
And then the only other note I wrote down, like Max LP's pointing out, is depending on what you think happens at the top end of the power scale, hashtag the thing
yep.
would color your opinion of this card one direction or another. I mean, because again, even if it's not game breaking outcomes, etc., like you still are going to have the P home. You're still going to have the home run power edge over most pitchers, so that may help the card a little bit more than
You are.
no matter
The problem is he also doesn't walk.
right. I still
So
have it coming up
he's just
short.
not getting on base all that
Right,
much.
right.
Um,
And we're getting to the point where 55 avoid K is also pretty rough.
but also there's just
Not
some big
rough, but
bat.
it's
There were
not
just some
helping.
big bats that came out recently. Like Daniel Murphy's a pretty big bat that also, well, actually he can even play first a little bit.
Right, but he's not combinator eligible.
That's true. Um, yeah, I guess the Brandon Belt's also a mission card, right? He's not combinator
Right.
eligible.
Yeah, that card is a beast for a non-combi player. I still like last I looked, there hadn't even one sold yet. I don't even know how hard the mission is.
I wouldn't mind going after a Cheney White though. So the mission I think is pretty hard as part of the problem.
Yeah.
Um, let me see what you need. You need okay, you need Texas complete.
Okay,
With
so there's one out on the market now.
but see, Texas
L10
complete
of 7340.
includes
It's
Texas
that one
complete.
reliever.
See includes that's not so. Hold on. Let me try this correctly. Um, it includes this college connections
Hmm.
where you've got to get at least a diamond. So it's going to cost you 70K to do this mission right now. Okay, no, it won't really cost you 70K, right? It'll probably cost you 50, 55. But it'll cost you something like that to do this mission. So it probably will cost you 75K to do the missions for Belt in total, I guess. Um, so I guess it is cheaper to buy him, except he's probably just not.
Yeah, it's just like Maddox. If you're running a full combi squad, you're not running Belt, and if you aren't, you'd love to have him, but he's expensive.
Yeah. You know what? Actually, why don't I buy him? You talked me into it.
I thought about buying it, but I'm saving money for a couple of things I'm trying to buy right now, which we'll get to soon.
Yeah, I probably haven't looked at those either, but you're gonna have to boost them, and I don't have to boost this card. I can just play it as is, and it won't be that good.
Yep. I guess I'll have
Much
to get
easier.
the next one.
Hold on. Max is saying we skipped. Oh, is there a Browning
No,
card that we skipped?
it'll
Is
be there were 372s, so I think our order is just different, unless it's just not up there. Oh, it's Tom
uh
Browning. No, it's next. Oh, we did skip it.
no, we
Whoops.
got it. No, we've got him. Oh, I see. We skipped him in our order is what happened.
Yeah.
Aha. Okay, sorry. What
Whoops.
do we get? So Dick Stewart probably just might even be an F minus then. Now that I think about it.
Yeah, Dick Stewart,
Yeah, it's probably just
I
an F
wrote D
minus.
minus, but yeah, F minus.
Yeah, I think it's just pretty
I'm
far
not
behind
interested in the
then.
card.
All right, Tom
There's no reason
Browning.
that you should be spending money on that card.
All right, Tom Browning then. Um,
Remember Giovanni Gallardo?
we did miss Browning. All right, Tom Browning. He's got more.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
he's got a lot
I
more
didn't think about the small
control
array.
than Gallardo.
So
Uh,
maybe it's not an F minus. That's a good point.
he is an extreme fly ball guy who's given up a lot of home runs, which is usually a bad combination.
Right. I wrote
Uh,
down that this is a true dead ball pitcher card. Like if we do 19-0 whatever,
yeah,
this
I think
card's gonna
that's
play.
true. True dead ball. This is actually a pretty good card, so probably that's
Right.
enough to make him like maybe we'll call it like an F plus. I think any other format it doesn't work, but yeah,
No, that's literally what I wrote down was F plus because you can't give them a higher grade than that because as it stands, that format doesn't exist. And
yeah,
low silver already has a 1939, so it's not like if we get a reset, they're likely to turn the clock back even further. And so at
yeah.
whatever
They've
point
been really
there may be a
reluctant to go
format.
back to true dead ball this cycle. You know, the
Right.
last couple cycles we've had a few of them.
I think we've partially seen why. I mean, it just felt so much more random
The
with
thing is,
so
it's
many
not. The
balls in
thing is,
play and
it's not random. Uh, it's that people have to learn what the game looks like. Um,
well, there's that.
I mean, I think there was a bigger edge for people that actually thought about dead ball, I guess. Um, there you go. Woody Williams. By eye, this just looks understated, doesn't it? But let me see if the model disagrees with me.
No, I think I actually ended up liking this card.
Okay, the model has it outside the top five, but not horribly understated for me. Um, and a couple of the cards ahead of him are cards that can't be combinator eligible. So maybe at L5 he might sort of sneak into being fringy in the rotation.
That's what happened for me. Because like I wrote down a D for non-combi, but then for combi, I thought it was actually playable.
Yeah, I think a D is reasonable. Like I still think he's just missing a few points compared with like some of the cards above him. Um, well, actually, maybe that's a good way to think about it. Is trying to find exactly the right comparison. No, I guess there's not a good comparison there. Although now that I look at this, I notice that Greg Maddux is almost identical to Jake Miller.
Hmm.
uh, so yeah, all right.
Yeah, I
Maybe
had
D is
this.
reasonable. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would D plus it at
All right,
least.
let's
Like
give it D
I have
plus.
this playing in silver
All right, we
personally.
can give it D plus then. um, sorry. All right. Herman Marquez.
This is where it starts to get good.
All right, we're up to gold. And remind me after this. Let's because we had some questions about sliders that we were gonna
Mhm.
go through.
So just right out the gate, like I have Herman Marquez as the best low gold starting pitcher, and it's really not
Okay.
close for me. And then I actually have him playing up into full gold in full meta rotation too. Like he projected quite well when I ran him.
Um. Okay. So I do think the PBABIP is going to hurt him. Um. Like especially when it gets that low, I don't have it as being worthless in the current engine. Um. My sense is that like the other ratings, PBABIP isn't as important, nearly as it was, last cycle. My
Mm-hmm.
sense is still that like all the other ratings on the very low end, you do get punished for it. Um, so having said that, I still have him like, let me see. So in low gold, I think I have him like third. Uh, and that means I don't quite have him playing full gold.
Mm.
But like in the ballpark.
Mhm.
Um, and I guess also this is probably a profile that plays decently out of the pen. The other weird thing is it's an extreme ground ball pitcher with a very low PBABIP, which is kind of a unique combination.
Yeah, that is going to be a monster out of the pen. A couple of 107s. Yeah, my system just doesn't seem to punish the PBAP as much, which I'm willing to admit I could be wrong.
Yeah,
And
so
there's a
could I. I
bat
mean,
too,
uh,
a little bit of a bat.
little bit.
It's a slappy bat.
Not enough
It's
of a bat
there.
that you ever want to run him, but
Nah. If you get him in a draft, you make him a pinch hitter potentially.
let's see. Um,
I didn't run the bat,
yeah, and
so
if I
I
and
couldn't
if
tell
I
you.
and
I
if I
didn't
yeah,
run
so
him
if I
as a
look at him in
starter.
full gold, I don't quite want to play him out of the pen, but it's close. And if he's the
Mhm.
card you've invested in the combinator for, then then you're going to kind of choose that anyway.
Yeah. And then apparently there was some bug with leveling up the new, like all the new releases that hit. There was a bug that caused certain food to not work for them. And so I heard the person that bought the first copy of this was not able to level currently, or like couldn't use certain cards or something like that.
That's unfortunate.
So that had,
Um,
yeah, that had to be very frustrating.
well, that clearly downgrades him. Um,
That does for that person.
all right. Well, I was gonna say he's like an A, but if he can't be combinatable, then clearly, I don't know, A minus,
But yeah,
B
no, it's
plus. What do you want to
no,
give him?
they've already fixed it, I believe, or if not, they will. Well, yeah, it's an A for me.
All right, let's give him an A. All right, and then we've got Ken Johnson and Mike Witt,
Right.
right?
So now I will tell you that my stuff likes Ken Johnson more.
Okay, so Johnson, I'm just going to put them both up here.
Yep.
This one has enough P-BABIP for it not to be a problem, but in return, you've lost some of the stuff, right?
Hmm.
Uh,
Right.
and Witt again has more P-BABIP, but is lighter on control. Um, yeah, I've got Ken Johnson just as the top gold starter.
That's Yep. That's
And
exactly what I
then
have.
I've got Wit as only number 6 at base, but sorry, 4 of the cards ahead of him actually are not combinator eligible. So he'll be number 2 at
Yeah.
level 5.
Yeah, I think I had him 3 maybe, but yeah, I mean, they're both of these cards at L5 are playing in a rotation without question.
Yeah, and
And
Johnson
I have
probably
Ken
plays
almost
up, or at least close,
that's
right?
it was close when I ran it, and I think part of that is maybe meta right now, but it was just like you said, the PBAP, but the stuff is just a little too low, and there's so many good, even low diamond bats
All
right
right, I've
now.
got Ken Johnson 6th in at low diamond. So probably plays up out of
Yeah,
the
I think
pen, and then if you're missing a
it
card,
yeah, I think I had him like 8 or 9 or something as a starter, somewhere in there. But it's a really good card,
why is Leon Day a hundred
and
thousand point card? That can't
I
be
don't
right.
know.
Why is this a
I'm just
hundred?
hoping that
Why is
because
this a hundred
everybody's
thousand point card? Oh well. Oh, I see. He's the key card for Rogan.
uh, oh, yeah, that explains it.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess I'm thinking what Johnson's maybe like an S and Witt's more like an A.
Yeah, that's I agree with that.
All right. Sounds good.
It's just funny because last I looked, Wit was okay. No, people. So the first Wit sold, the Combi Wit sold for 186,000, or
Okay.
two have sold in that area. No Ken Johnsons have sold, but the highest bid right now is only 111,000.
Okay.
So I think people are just like, ooh, stuff, spicy card.
Well,
Ken
Wit
Johnson's all you want.
also played kind of forever, right? So he's probably easy to level.
Mm. That I'm sure there's gonna be perfect game,
Because
you
didn't
know, or
Wit
perfect.
basically played almost his whole career with California? Um, and Ken Johnson, okay, no, Ken Johnson also played a while. No, but he bounced around between different teams, so he's just not going to
Mm,
have the same food.
mm.
Okay, so Wit will be a lot cheaper to level probably.
I have a feeling that's not why people were spending more. I don't think most people are putting that much thought into it. I think they just saw the card art and that it was the big name
Very,
release,
very
and I think they
possible.
were just wouldn't shock me.
Um,
But
all right.
yeah, I just thought it was interesting that in gold we've had Cliff Lee basically since Radkey that have been, in my opinion, up until last week, meta pushers. And let's see. So Radkey was BREF Series 4, I guess, but like we've really only had those two cards until Blair last week that I thought pushed the gold starting pitcher meta. And then this week we get at least two, if not arguably three new cards that are pushing it. So it's just like we went from 0 to 100 in gold this week.
Makes sense. All right, so should we talk about some sliders real quick, maybe before we?
Yeah, the
Just
last couple of
realize I
cards
got to
aren't going to
remember
take that
to.
long.
I just realized I got to remember to put a, and I think I've got one new card that probably is the card not eligible. Never mind. I don't have a new card that's eligible, so I'm not going to run it. But we can actually. This is as good a place as any to look at sort of some sliders. So I think the question we got asked is, how are you changing your sliders, kind of depending upon score and situation.
Hmm.
Um, and there are at least a handful at least that I tend to change. I don't know kind of what you do.
I've been lazy and haven't done enough of those. I have some, but not a ton. Mostly like the increased bunt and things like that in the ninth. I think
Yeah,
it's pretty.
so I think the ones that are most important, yeah, the bunting, normally I hate sack bunts, I hate squeeze bunts for the same reason that I hate intentional walks. The problem with the sacrifice bunt is you're basically giving up an out. And the
You're
problem with
trading
an
an out for
intentional
a base.
walk is you're handing people a free base. And both of these are things that kind of hurt your expected total runs. Um, you know, they're both things that kind of are, trying to maximize the chances that you end up giving up exactly 0 runs or scoring exactly 1 run in an inning. Okay, but, so if you go to the timing, let's say in the ninth inning, in a 1 run game, now I actually am willing to bunt, right?
Yep.
Um, and similarly, another one is some of the shifts. In general, I like shifting a lot. You know, kind of anything that's like so powerful that basically you know the majors had to ban it. Um, but there are some close late. I don't think I meant to do this, but there are some close late situations where you might do something different. Or another example, playing the infield in, playing the corners in. What you're doing is, you're trying to cut down the run at home, right? So you're again trying to optimize for the chance to actually shut them out in that inning. But you just give up a lot more hits with a drawn in infield.
Yep.
So in almost every circumstance, I don't want to do that. But maybe late, maybe I'm willing to kind of do both of these things a little bit, you know.
Yeah, when you don't care if it's a single or a double, like with
And
the
maybe
protect
with a
corners
with
or
a
whatever.
lead, maybe maybe something like that, right? It's at least not quite 0, but maybe a little bit less often. Um, so something like that, right? Maybe even the seventh and eighth, maybe I'm willing to like move that up a click. Um, so I guess that's the kind of change that I would look at making. So I will bunt in the late innings. Now, the other thing to think about is This is a really good thing to do in low scoring games. So if you're playing like an open low cap, where as soon as you get into the bullpen, or actually maybe a middle cap is even better, where sort of you're running a full roster of hitters, and as soon as you get into the bullpen, sometimes just, scoring explodes. You probably want that bunt set to zero, I would think, in all circumstances.
Yeah, totally agree.
Um,
The other thing that I would say, it's not necessarily a time of game or whatever situation dependent, but like I would still argue that most people, whatever setting you have for stealing, it's too high. For unless the player has over 100, it's at zero for me, without exception. And I have seen the success rates, the run values, whatever you want to call it, but like if a player is not at least at 100 for steal rate, success whatever rate, and preferably higher than that, they should not be stealing. And that's true for iron all the way up. I'm sure there's exceptions, but people are like, oh, it's 85. Like I'll give them 2 taps. No, turn it to zero. You're giving up runs.
I have a
You're giving up
lot of
outs.
trouble figuring out what to do with this, and stop me if you've heard this one before.
You
Even though it's a counting stat, it's a stat the game gets wrong.
think steals are misrepresented?
Yes. Or actually, rather, stealing percentage is misrepresented.
Oh yeah.
So here's what I mean. Um, take a situation where you've set your stealing to dead flat zero.
Yep.
Okay.
Most of my rosters.
So you're sort of trying to steal zero bases. Do you actually end up with zero steals and zero caught stealing?
No, they always still steal a little bit.
Well, they
Very
steal a little
frustrating.
bit, but most importantly, they
Or they
get picked
attempt a little
off.
bit. Right.
No, so it's not that
Mm.
they're attempting to steal. It's that there's
Oh, that counts
basically
as a
some base rate where they're getting picked off, even if you tell them, I don't ever want you to steal and I want you to nail your foot to the bag.
right.
There's some base rate that seems to depend on like cold runner type stuff, or
Mm.
maybe even a catcher arm. I haven't tried to
Sure.
model it, but there's some base rate at which your players are getting picked off. And so if you're looking at the stealing and kind of saying, well, okay, the break even point on stealing, maybe is in the mid 70% or something, uh, and my players are lower than that even at whatever number, what you have to do is you have to subtract kind of this base number of like, they're just going to get picked off because, I don't know, they're idiots and they fall for the hidden ball trick even when you tell them to nail their foot to first base or something, right? Um, but there's some base rate where that's happening. And you have to subtract that off before you can figure out whether your stealing slider is helpful. Problem is, I don't know how to do that. Uh, I don't have a way to figure out which of the steals are kind of pickoffs that have nothing to do with the attempt, and which of the steals are, the guy tried to steal a base and was thrown out.
Yeah. Kind of like framing. Like we literally have no way of knowing.
Um,
That's a whole
every
nother
time
can of
I've
worms.
tried to estimate the number, I've come out with it being high enough that I do occasionally want to steal bases. But, a lot of the stuff we show on stream, there's a good data driven reason that we're saying it. Uh, so that's why when there isn't, like here, I try to be really explicit about where it's coming from. I'm not telling you that I'm setting my steel slider higher because I've got data that proves that's where it should go. I'm telling you I've set it higher because I don't know how to estimate this effect. And my best, like, rough estimate of this effect says I probably do want to steal bases occasionally.
Hmm.
Um,
At that point, I'd rather, and like I do on occasion, obviously turn it up when a player has good enough steal. I'll either override it or I'll still keep it at zero on this and then crank it up on theirs. Which again, I have no data to show that if you have it 0 on your main, like the full sliders, then you crank it up on the whatever one that it finds a balance. I don't know how that system works,
My
but they
understanding
feel
is it roughly adds the two, so that if you're,
that
some
tracks.
number of clicks left or right for team and some number of clicks left or right for the player, it basically adds them if it's set to adjust to team, right? There are two
Hmm.
settings in the slider when you go to, I'll just illustrate this.
Yep.
So see, I can adjust to team strategy or override. So if I override, it's just exactly what's set here. But if it's adjust, then my understanding is if I click this two to the right and my team is three to the left, it'll sort of behave as like one to the left.
Right. And I
Um,
generally don't use override anymore because what I, in my mind, when you use override, you lose the ability to have situational dependent adjustments to your sliders,
that's true.
because if it's
Um,
overriding it, it's
yeah,
not
yeah,
going
that
to
that's
have
true.
the, which is why I don't generally use it anymore.
Um, yeah. So anyway, I think that's kind of at least what I've tried. Uh, Yeah, and Mr. Black talking about the intentional walk. So I think what Mr. Black seemed to successfully show is that when you set the intentional walk slider to something other than 0, the game seems to be doing a halfway decent job of kind of only really wanting to walk players where it's a good hitter in front of a bad hitter. So it's at least making a decent decision about like when you should intentionally walk. Um, the problem I
Not
have is
doing
this
it too
same problem
much.
with, well, the problem I have is the same problem with bunting. Just like even peak Barry Bonds, the expected value of one of his at bats was less than the value of a walk. So it still is the case that even with like peak Barry Bonds, just putting him on base for free was on average a worse outcome than pitching to him. Uh, so you should pitch to him unless, if there, so like if there's a late game situation where it's actually important to like, maybe there's tied game, bottom of the ninth, maybe I actually, I don't care at that point whether they score 1 run or 4 runs, right? If they score a run, they win. Okay, in that situation, maybe it does kind of make sense. But, most circumstances, I just think that probably the sabermetric answer is you never intentionally walk anybody. Um, the other thing, actually, I wish you could do with the sliders that you can't right now. I wish there were a difference between top and bottom of the ninth here.
Mm.
Um, because I think if there's ever a time to intentionally walk somebody, it's going to be the bottom of the ninth or the bottom of extras in a tie game rather than the top. Because in the top, it still matters whether you give up 1 run or 5, right? So it's really only the bottom where it doesn't. Um, but I don't know. I mean, we know that there are major league teams that disagree pretty strongly with me on this. I mean, remember, was it last year or 2 years ago that we even had this thing where in extras people started like intentionally balking just because they completely didn't care about the base, but they didn't want the runner on second stealing signs.
I forgot about
Um, so it's clear that like there are major league teams that are thinking about this and disagree with me on that. Uh, but
that.
at
Yeah, and the
least,
other thing
yeah.
I put in chat, I think, was just there are so few intentional walks that I think at the end of the day, it's probably got more to do with game situation than what your slider is set at, because they just happen so infrequently when you look at the aggregate. Which again, the time it happens is probably the time you care about whether your not your
Well, if
slider
if
is up or
you if
down.
you max if you max it, it'll obviously happen more often. But I don't know enough about the rates. I think Mr. Black would be a good person to ask because has kind of looked into it, and he became pretty convinced that he could find an effective way to use it.
Hmm.
Um, and like I said, it's not that I'm disagreeing with him on, how effective it is. It's just that I'm kind of saying, it's the same reason I like I so much, right? Um,
It's reliable.
yeah, you know, I just generally want my hitters to get on base, and the problem is anybody I intentionally walk has a 1,000 OBP.
Right?
Um, so anyway, hopefully that helps a bit with the sliders. I think, were there anything else that people had wanted us? Oh, I think Max LP was asking about the tiredness hook. So there is this setting where, here it is, where I can set an aggressive tiredness hook. Now, what it says is, if enabled, this pitcher will be pulled more aggressively when he's tiring in a game. Um, Maybe it's worth explaining exactly what that means, or
Well, my understanding of it and how it ends up working with starting pitchers specifically is, and it's not always perfect, but if you have that selected, the game is infinitely more likely it is at least targeting pulling the pitcher before they go below the 4% so that they would be fully ready for their start 5 days later. Whereas if you don't have that selected, it is far more likely that it's going to run that pitcher past that point to where they may only be 80-85% for their next start. And if you're in, a best of 9 or something where you're back to back best of 9s, that can be devastating. If your pin's already a little tired and then your starter can only go, 4 because he's only got 80% stamina that day. That
right?
does
Oh,
not always save you from it. I've had times where I have that clicked and they'll still be at 3%. And I assume that's because, they're mid at bat maybe and it's an extra 5 pitches and that runs them down. But for the most part, it saves you from that specifically.
okay. So let's see. So I guess there are a couple things in there. So first, someone's asking about guard lines. So there's a really good segment you can find that Kidneys did with Pidge. And I'd see if you can find a video of that because he describes in a lot more detail the things that he did to test this.
I think it's
Uh,
still on YouTube. I watched it recently
yeah, so that's probably
somewhere.
the thing to point people to. Um, but generally, guard lines, kind of as you might imagine, is it's giving up more singles and fewer extra base hits. That's kind of the idea. Um, and at least Pidge's sense was that in most circumstances, it's probably just a benefit.
To prevent the doubles and triples.
Yeah. Um, okay, so what I'm going to describe, again, there's kind of a good video. I want to say Mushroom maybe did with Kidneys at one point. So I'm kind of summarizing a bit from there. And I again recommend people kind of go back and find that video. So the idea is that pitchers actually have sort of an in-game stamina as well. And one of the things that happens, and this is the biggest reason you like aggressive tiredness hook, is when that in-game stamina hits 0, the pitcher gets a lot worse. Okay, and that's related to kind of the recovery, but the recovery is actually less of a big deal. And what I mean by that is, so until a couple of years ago, there was essentially precisely 0 penalty for starting a pitcher that was, tired. So like, let's say your starting pitcher, was on 40%. What would happen would be he'd start at 40%. He'd continue to drain from 40%. He would still get a lot worse if he hit 0. But until he hit 0, there wasn't anything particularly worse about him. So as long as he could get through his minimum 18 batters, before he hit 0, there was nothing wrong with starting a guy on short rest. And for a while, there was even a potentially dominant strategy where in Modern, what you would do is you would just run a 4-man rotation with 18 batters faced, Because it was 18 batters faced, you were getting all of the advantages of bullpens and fresh starters, right? Because you could run, 8 bullpen arms at that point, right? Um, so you'd basically run like 4 plus 8. They would typically be like 69, maybe 70% when you started them, but that would be fine because that was enough to keep them above zero. Um, and so that's what aggressive tiredness hook's doing. It's related to the recovery, but the point is there isn't at least directly, sort of this penalty for like starting a guy at 90%. It's not that if you start him at 90%, he's like 90% as effective or something, is what they had found for starters. For relievers, it worked differently, but that was the answer for starters. Um, at the beginning of, I want to say last cycle, it was sort of decided that this 4-man rotation thing was undesirable. And so they actually made a rule change where they have this punishment that if you start a starter on short rest, there's some chance that he doesn't have it that day. And doesn't have it that day was never really directly defined for us. But the idea was it was meant to sort of make it so that you couldn't just run this 4-starter strategy in League. Um, you can still do versions of it. You can do versions of it in tournaments as long as kind of the guy is getting back to 100%. So for example, in the dead ball PTCS we just had, one viable strategy was instead of running a 3-man rotation and basically they pitch all the games, you can run a 2-man rotation at 18 batters faced, and then they would usually recover back to 100% going every other day if they only faced 18 hitters. Not all of them. The low stamina guys actually wouldn't. Like I tried that in bronze, and sort of Bill Lee wouldn't recover, for example. But that's what aggressive tiredness hook is trying to do. And, the bigger protection isn't even will your guy quite get back to 100%. It's he's never going to throw a pitch when he's at zero just because he's having a good day, if that kind of makes sense. Um, but it means like for micro, you can actually turn that off and just let the guy run deeper. And as long as he's getting his full rest, my understanding is he won't be able to go as deep in the next game before he hits zero. So you'll worry about that a bit. But my understanding is that if he has full rest, he doesn't get this sort of doesn't have it that day penalty. At
Hmm.
least there hasn't been any announcement to change it.
I want to say I heard somebody said that there's just a mechanic built into the game now in general that even if it's fully rested, your starter may just have a bad game. But I can't remember who I
I
heard that
haven't
from.
seen that, but if it's true that it can happen when fully rested and there's no penalty to rest again, then it might be worth going back and experimenting with the 4-starter strategy in League and seeing what happens.
Hmm.
Um, because the game has this significant third time through the order penalty, there is a big advantage to pulling your pitchers after 18 batters faced in general, like in basically every format. Uh, and of course, you could do that running 5 plus 8 if you're willing to run a 13th arm. That's another way to do it. But if you can get away with 4 plus 8, it just kind of looks like a normal depth chart.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, actually, now that I think about it, maybe I should try that because, I mean, I have Elmer, who's a real two-way in League right now. Rogan's a real two-way in League right now. So I could probably even run like 4 plus 9 and see what happens. Yeah, maybe that's worth trying. That would be a fun experiment. At least kind of see what how much they don't have it day to day.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, all right, is that it for sliders? Were there other things, or should we go back and look at?
Yeah, let's go finish grading these things.
All
Unless
right.
somebody has something.
Yeah, I got to be up early tomorrow. Anyway.
Yeah, I have a tea time.
Oh, nice. What's your handicap?
Not good enough to know it, and I've not golfed in a
Ah,
while.
your handicap is that you play golf.
Yes. No, I am. I am not bad. Like most people that don't know their handicap are just terrible at golf. I'm whatever the tier above that is, but not good
Okay.
enough to know my handicap. I've played my whole life.
I
Kind of
always
left-handed.
found that golf actually got less fun as you got better.
I would, yeah, no, I think that, and I I live in the dead middle where I and I learned this at a young age. I go to have fun and I enjoy myself. I can have the worst round ever and I still have a good time. Like, and it's just one of those where, my grandfather and I, that was our thing growing up. And so it's always been a joyful thing to me. So I'm very, very thankful that that's my like association
I
with
see.
golf because like my dad literally quit golf because it was all about getting better and it never worked out. And so he does not golf anymore.
Yeah. See, for me, when I was really bad, you know, I'd like just try shots, and you'd remember the like two or three great shots you hit in a round, and that was fun. And then as
Oh
I
yeah.
got better, at the end of the round, you'd be thinking about like the two or three awful shots you hit,
Two
and
or
it just
three
got
off.
frustrating. Um, and I was never good, good. I mean, I got down to, I want to say about a 10 or 11 handicap. And then I moved to Denmark and didn't play much, so I'll have to start up again back in the US. But 10 or 11 is sort of the point that, like, you'll have like a couple double bogeys on the card, and those will be really frustrating.
Yep.
Um,
I've got friends like that.
so you're playing
I don't
something
have
that
that
resembles
problem.
golf, but like, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm gonna be smoking a cigar the whole time and some form of drink and
yep.
we're gonna be having fun.
So,
M-
all
You know,
right.
Central Texas golf courses are not exactly known for their lushness because it never rains over here.
That makes
So
sense.
unless it's a really nice golf course, which this one is not, you can be playing in a dust bowl a little bit sometimes. So
That
can't get
makes
all worked up
sense.
about that stuff.
Um, yeah. Does it get real windy there too, then, or
No, because we're in the hilly area, so I'm on
okay?
this side of 35 where it's actually has some elevation, so it does not tend to get too windy,
Okay, yeah,
just
because I
dry.
remember I remember that was a thing, because where I grew up, it wouldn't be that windy, so you'd hit the ball real high, and then
Yeah,
uh,
no, we don't have tall enough trees for that to be a concern where you get like the vortexes. We don't have any of that. We just have dirt,
okay,
lots of dirt and
fair enough.
rock, yeah,
Um,
rocks and rattlesnakes.
all right. Oh yeah, the route. Yeah, I remember playing around in Arizona and being told like, one of the places I hit a ball, just don't go in there. There are
Yep.
rattlesnakes. Just
Yeah,
call
that
that a
one's yep.
lost ball and drop one.
Yep.
Um, all right. Anyway, yeah, Roy Thomas.
Roy
Let me see what we
Thomas.
got here.
So
Huh.
I was pretty meh on him.
I'm trying to figure out. Okay, so I have him third best in center one way, fourth best the other way. I do have him by a tiny bit as the best card if you have to run one two-way, just because the others are also splitty. Like a Sizemore Lynn type one way, Cleon Jones or something the other way, who can play a few places. But I think the problem is, as a one position guy, like center actually just seems to be something you want to platoon right now in low diamond to me.
Hmm. So you don't have Andrew Jones better than him?
Uh,
Because I did.
I have Andrew Jones a little behind him two way, yeah.
Okay.
Better defensively.
Yeah. And then I just had the power overcoming it enough to where I would probably just, you know, play Andrew Jones and then you're saving the investment in two tiers. But yeah, I wrote down, if you went back far enough with a dead ball kind of a thing with low diamond, then, that's where he would really shine.
The problem is that's where he'd shine, but that's where like a card like Richie Ashburn
Oh yeah.
is just better on his good side is the problem. That's the problem, is that sort of
Yeah,
he
no.
you know
Like you
he I
said,
think he
you're gonna
then gets
platoon center
squeezed
field.
out by um or
And he's
again
got the
like
center and right, which I
yeah.
love. and the gap's going to help him play up over just the pure.
Yeah, so I think he just gets squeezed out, but like it feels funny to give an F to a card that you do have as the best both ways, but I just don't think there's ever a use case to play him.
Right. And then even if there was, this is the kind of card that's going to get power crept out so quickly. I mean, it's
Yeah, but
hanging
also
on it.
yeah.
Like if you already had an L5 Jones, you just
Oh,
take the
then you don't
slight
bother. Yeah,
right.
yeah,
And
and
so
also he's a
power
one
couldn't
position
tank.
guy, so if he's not
Yeah.
starting both ways, you actually can't roster him.
Right.
So all right, Fred Hutchinson. Okay, well, my first reaction by
Is that Ken
I
Johnson's better?
is that this card's just missing a lot of rating points, isn't he?
Yeah, I have Ken Johnson as a better pitcher.
I have like 20 guys as the better pitch. I think
Sure.
this is just an F minus.
Yeah, because he also misses the cut by 2 years for the Saturday night over under the covers, whatever, where he would have been a really good pitcher in that format, but it's like 2 years
But
off,
even there,
so
he
he
wouldn't have
doesn't
been
pitch
that
that.
good of a pitcher is the problem.
Oh,
Um,
I didn't
yeah,
actually run like
like
who would or
like
wouldn't
he's just
be.
missing points.
I agree. Yeah,
All right, Heine
I feel like in
Manouche.
Diamond you need more stuff than this in Diamond.
Well, this is a card that is not missing points.
Yep,
uh,
I
I've
wrote.
got this as just the top VR bat. Probably
Yep,
top two-way bat is maybe like third VL or something because there are a couple real lefty mashers.
that's exactly what I
Um,
wrote down.
and I hate the shape of this glove. Like this is not a 77 left field glove.
Right.
Uh, it really wants to be a DH.
Hmm.
He's the best bat in the format. He can DH.
Yeah, I
Uh,
think you're probably running. Um, oh, who is it? What Zeke and probably like Jack Clark, and then
Clark one way,
Heine.
yeah.
Yep, that's probably how I would run this. Like he's probably the two-way DH, and you've got Zeke and Jack or whoever. Um, but yeah,
Yeah. So
and
this
then in full
is
diamond, Hyland and Delgado kind of still
so
outclass
maybe
him,
I mean he
obviously,
doesn't
but in
play
low
up. He
diamond.
really does
Right.
have to be a DH. So maybe he's just an A, but it's a good card.
Yes. Right there with you on that.
All right, we'll give him an A. And we would full diamond and Andy Messersmith. We've had a couple Messersmiths already this cycle, right?
Yeah, he's got another card. I can't
Um,
remember what. I think it's a bronze or
looks like we got
something,
okay. I'm seeing it here.
or
We
a
got a silver
silver.
here.
Yeah,
Uh, this is a full diamond.
yeah.
Um, where does ratings points go?
To P Babbitt.
Even to PBAB. Uh, like this card is clobbered by Ken Johnson, isn't it?
I don't know if I ran Ken Johnson all the way up to this.
Well,
Again, it's the same thing. If
you
you think the
shouldn't run Ken
P-Bab,
Johnson all the way up to this, but you also shouldn't run
right?
Andy Messersmith.
Yeah. Again, it's one of those where if you think the
Uh,
P-Bab over 120 matters, then it's still not good enough.
then it's an F minus. All right.
But yeah,
Cade Smith.
this card,
That's got a
a
lot
lot
of
of points.
points in a lot of
Yep.
interesting places, doesn't it?
Yep.
This one's probably pretty good.
Yeah. If somebody's
Um,
willing to spend the diamond combinators to L5 this, it probably plays really, really well in league, even with the low P-Bab.
I
But
I
again,
I
I
would
didn't run that.
absolutely believe this could be a league card. Yeah. Um, Andy's
I was
actually
a
got this
base.
21 stamina.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I could believe that.
And I haven't run a perfect league model or anything. I my
No,
league
but
team is
this
not
does look
good.
This looks pretty
Yeah,
playable. I agree.
it's just nasty.
Um,
You just make him your closer, or maybe A+ closer, so that he's coming in with, well, maybe not A+ because he's not coming in
yeah.
clean
So
at that point.
I
But
do have him as just the top.
yeah, top
Actually,
five
by a
diamond
fair
dealer.
bit because the cards that he's ahead of also are like Mission Edition, Tournament Edition.
Yep. So he's in a rotator. He's in a pin as a base card, and if somebody wants to spend the money to L5 him or L anything
Do
him,
you actually bump him up to an S as a bullpen guy?
I think what might keep me from it is the fact that it's a future legend and
So it's
it's
a little
going to
hard
be
to.
exorbitantly expensive. Of course, again, most of these diamonds at that point, you're just, but that's, I mean,
Yeah,
again,
I
if you're
assume you're
buying
paying a lot, but
five,
you're paying a fair bit for a good, perfect
right,
league arm anyway.
right. So, I mean, if it's worth 250,000 to you to buy five diamond combinators or whatever to
Yeah,
get the
I
levels,
guess that's the
then
way you would do it.
right. If it's worth that to you, then it's an S+ to that. To the person that has that kind of budget, it is worth it.
Okay,
Otherwise,
maybe just
no.
give it a
So, I
normal
mean,
S then. How about that?
yeah, no, I'd agree with that.
All right. Ginger Beaumont. Um, huh. This looks similar. Yeah, it's a really similar shape to Roy Thomas, right? Just a little bit more of
Mhm.
everything, which is why, uh, he's up to a 99.
Right. And then to me, the question is, are you willing to accept 90 range at
So
center field?
I don't mean Roy Thomas, sorry. He doesn't have the eye. I mean, where's the card I was looking for? It's Cleon Jones basically with more, but not the glove.
Right.
Um, yeah, I think so. In tournaments, I suspect it's going to be an okay combination. I still think I'd run Max Carey, um, and probably
I'll
JD
probably,
Drew, probably the JD Drew mission card at base. So if you're going to
right.
invest in a combinator, this jumps ahead. At
Well,
base version, maybe not quite. So maybe it's
agree. I also
like,
thought Cespedes at center field was interesting if you were willing to, if you were looking for a less than 100 range, he's got more power.
okay, so maybe he's like a C or a D.
Yeah, he was more D+ for me.
Okay, let's make it a D.
Okay.
And we are up to the, what are we calling 101s? Perfect.
The stuff that I don't have a qualified opinion on.
Uh,
McTacklin's got a lot of points though.
all right, Hank Greenberg. Here we go. Uh,
He also has a lot of
yeah,
points.
and I'm also really not following the league meta because yeah.
Well, I feel like we definitely have seen more left-handed starting pitching of late,
Yep.
so that probably helps justify this card on some level
Um, so I think part
because
of the
he's
discussion here is actually going to be this Roger Connor that we're going to have to talk about in a moment.
hmm,
Um, but having said that, this VL bat is big.
yeah,
As you know, I like big bats. Cannot lie.
cannot.
Um, this is a big BL bat. It is at the league level probably a one-way bat.
Yeah,
Um, and
I don't know what his
the left
threshold
field
range is.
probably
Yeah,
is not quite enough. Sorry, I should be in the regular. Oh, no spotlight this week.
yeah,
Um, no, you're not going to get 879,000 for this card. 240,000 looks closer to me. Uh, it's a one-way card. It's probably first base only, so it's probably pretty easy to squeeze him out, I would think. I imagine you want to run him right now.
right.
So,
Yeah, that's a good point. I can't even imagine
Yeah,
what
and
a combi
Progiatic
is.
saying, yeah, you really like him as a combinator.
Me too.
That's true. I mean, the problem is that for one of these perfects, like there's a decent chance that a combinator simply never gets pulled while the card's in the meta.
Oh, but I've seen most of these cards. I, not most of them, but a good number of them are getting pulled. I think what two Charleston combis have already been pulled or something.
Nice.
Like people are ripping still. People are still ripping a lot of packs because I, again, I've talked to several of the high end league people and they've got these combis. They
Okay.
exist.
All
So
right. Well,
it wouldn't shock me if we saw one in the next week or two while he was still. And again, even if you pulled a combi of this, what 2 or 3 weeks from now, it's probably the L5 version of this is probably still playing in League VL.
yeah, you're getting it's a fair bit of power.
Yeah, let's see. I got it
One ninety
over here.
twos.
192. Hey, I leveled up a Hank Sour today, which is like 192 or 198 VL. So apparently it's just having the name Hank gives
Yeah, there.
you,
Yep, there you go.
yeah,
Yeah.
194 L5 power
Well,
for
we'll
Hank
see. We'll see
Sour,
what your theory looks like if there are any other Hanks that come out that have some
right?
power VL.
Well, I'm also
Then we'll
really
really
curious
know.
about, yeah, I'm really curious to see how this, God, I wish we could get split data in tournaments, which I know everybody,
Hmm.
but like,
But I've
I,
been told that's impossible.
right, because at L5, Hank Sauer's VR power is 152 and his VL is 194. And so when you combine it, it comes out to 163. But I
Yep.
really want to see, I mean, I'll see it in the data because he's going to be a VL
Yeah.
bat for me for the most part. But I'm really curious to see what happens at the top end of the power scale there because
Makes
I have
sense.
thoughts. I have
So what
theories,
is
which
it? So
are,
where do you put him there? I mean,
oh, I got sidetracked. So are we talking about Greenberg still?
yeah. I mean Greenberg. It's a one-way card. It's the weak side, but
Is
he's
there an
by far the top bat
L5?
there, right?
Well, is there an L5 VL bat that would beat it? I assume not, but I don't know because
L5
it
probably.
it,
Like
it
there
very
was
well might
a. I mean,
exist.
there's a Miggy I think that got sold this week, where at
Yeah,
L5 he'd
I think
probably
another
jump
got
it.
pulled.
Yeah, so at L5 he would jump ahead.
So I feel like that's got to factor into it because what there's a handful of teams that care about that, but where it
Yeah,
matters, it does matter. Like if those are the people that we're not grading it for them, but that's the level of team that we're talking about when giving this
I
a
could
grade.
imagine this 177 BABIP VL might play a bit too, if I had to guess.
But it's only 100.
It is only 100.
I'm just gonna say I don't know if it's gonna be a good tournament or not or anything, but I just want to see a tournament where different rounds are the different 100s. So like a 102 round, a 101 round. Is it a good idea? No, but at least it would be a way to justify having the different numbers other than, hey, people, this is better because it's a higher number. Even if it's not true.
Yeah,
Just saying, it'd be a pretty easy way to implement and be like, see, guys, this is why we have it. Just throwing it out
fair
there.
enough.
Feel free to throw it right back. But yeah, I mean, L5 of this is just death destroying,
Yeah.
but you
Anyway,
can't really grade it on that.
so maybe what? It's like a B.
Yeah.
You're sort of guessing. I mean, all right.
Yeah.
Mickey Cochran. Um, so I've got this as the best VR catcher now. I mean, there's just a lot of
Yeah.
ratings points there.
Yep. He's got it in the
Um,
power. Because was it Maurer that's got what like a similar number of points, but it's just or who is it? Whoever the competition is just doesn't have it in the power, which is where this card ends up winning,
yeah.
is my understanding.
Yep. So just and of course, I guess the combinator version again was it's a big bat.
We like those.
We do. Um,
Solid base running too for a catcher.
yes, actually.
I've also grown to appreciate base running in this game the more I play, especially at lower levels, I feel like. Just because it seems to be a very linear amount of value applied, which I know we
I
can't
mean,
trust the value.
actually, now that I look at it, I mean, it's splitty, but in some circumstances, this is just the best VR bat in the game.
Hmm. Like as an L5 or
Yeah.
just even. Hmm.
Yeah, I
Over
mean,
on
not the best
who's.
player. I mean, I'd rather have Charleston or something for sure. Um,
Yeah, that was.
just in terms of the overall value, but just as a bat.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, he's got 10 more power than Charleston.
I
So,
think I think this is actually your S plus card for the week, maybe. I haven't looked at the other
not
three yet, but I think this might be the S plus.
no strong argument for me.
All right, let's give him an S plus.
Do it.
All right, we got one.
Because of the base running.
Absolutely. Uh, Nap Lajwe. Um, see, this is 102, so you know he's better than Cochrane. Um, except for one minor detail, which is I don't think he's better than Cochrane, or really his competitors at any of these positions.
Yeah.
I think the eye just it's just tough to print a card with that little eye that doesn't do enough other thing. All right, there's probably enough.
Yeah,
Mort
especially when you're rocking
Cooper.
17 power.
All right, Mort Cooper. Okay, why are we printing this as a 1942 card? It's enough of a watered down league that you know. Okay, well, it's what we did. I mean, there's a fair number of ratings points, but actually, at least for a tournament model, I have this a fair bit behind kind of the top arms right now.
Yeah, it's a lot of the points are in PBAB.
Yeah.
It's not really pushing and advancing any. The 158 control VR is nice, but everything else, we've kind of seen a lot of 130s, 140s.
All right. Yeah, and again, I'm not putting a lot of effort into league models, so
Yeah,
it may be the normalization will help him there.
I have a
Um,
Diamond League model, but it's very mediocre.
and well, he'll be good in Diamond League because most Diamond League
Yeah,
teams don't have one.
I think the L5 version would be really good.
All right, and finally Roger Connor. Oh, I wish this card didn't say third base. That's going to end up hurting him with the AI manager. uh,
Oh, I didn't think about that.
yeah, he's going to be a left-handed third baseman, and that's you know,
I tried it with Lip Pike early in the year when I didn't know any better. I learned the hard way.
uh, it's a decent
Was it
bat
Lip
for.
Pike or is it the
Yeah,
other?
I think probably
Anyways,
Pike.
okay.
Yeah, so it's a decent bat for first baseman. You know, it is probably your best first baseman, but like it's not particularly better than McCovey. McCovey with the extra power, in
Hmm.
some formats is just going to win, right?
Yep.
Um, I mean, it's funny because actually he's sort of squeezed in shape. He's kind of like an average between McCovey and Helton,
Hmm.
uh, except with a lot better defense. So this 102 range at first is interesting. It's kind of making him this big defensive first baseman. And if that's worth anything, that's probably a reason to prefer Connor.
Yeah. Switch hitter doesn't hurt either.
No. Uh,
103
I'm
base
gonna I'm
running.
gonna quibble with that one, by the way.
You don't like that it's a switch hitter?
I don't like that it's a switch hitter
Please explain.
because it's 1885. And Roger Connor basically is the guy that invented switch hitting. Um, you know, but that's actually a recent thing. He was really a left-handed hitter that sort of at some point decided to like try doing the switch hitting thing. Um, but the earliest evidence of that, at least that people have found, is like 1887. So I think the 1885 card should be a lefty.
Learned something today.
But having said that, he is a switch hitter. Um, you know, compared with Helton or McCovey, this is a much easier card to run two ways, and so that means he is actually quite a bit better than those cards.
Yep.
If you're going to platoon him with Greenberg anyway, okay, then you're platooning him. But otherwise, I do have him ending up half a win to a win better than a card like Helton or McCovey, uh, because the lefty side. So why does that probably make him like an A or a B? What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, how much is the third base getting subbed in really going to
I
hurt you?
think
I
you have
mean,
to
I
try to
guess
lock it. You have to try to do a lock it position thing or something in the
yeah,
sliders, maybe.
maybe even make it pinch hit in high leverage so that it does it later in the
Yeah.
game, hopefully. Like just all the little stops you pull them out. But no, I
Yep.
mean that defense, that base running, this again the two-way with the switch, definitely. Yeah, no, I like both those ratings. I'm
All right. What do you think?
very
A or B? Just I'll let you pick one.
uh, A minus.
A minus
No
it is.
biggie.
All right. All right. Well, that wasn't too bad. I know I've been trying to keep these a little bit quicker. Oh, we could do a TWIP draft. We should do a TWIP draft.
Yes.
Now, as you may remember, we have bad TWIP drafts. Like the one we had last week is actually a candidate for the worst we've had on stream, and we've had some doozies. Um, but even
I
with
will
that
continue to
said,
assure you that I
let,
will
let, let
not
me
help.
just let me just remind let's remind people how bad that draft was. I should rip all these packs at some point, by the way, because like I literally don't use this team for anything but Twipped on stream. Um,
Oh, I had an account that I got up to over 1,000 packs
I
recently
think I
that I
could I
ripped.
think I could do that if I still like bothered getting the drops, but since I realized I was never gonna rip them, it just sort of felt
Oh yeah,
like a waste.
I'm religious about drops. But yeah,
Um,
ripped. I think after I like sold everything, not sold, but like completed a bunch of missions. Like I basically ripped them. I treated it almost like a PCK, like pack
okay,
only team, where like I just any missions I locked, I ended up like ripping 1,500 plus packs, and I didn't get almost anything of value.
nice.
So if you think your
Uh,
pack luck sucks, guys, mine's worse.
um, so this was our team last week. Now I want to remind people this is an almost perfect draft. So these diamonds and perfects were in rounds where you could pick diamonds or perfects. And this is what we ended up with. Uh, how do we actually do? We won a game,
Hey,
and then we lost 21-9.
but you won a game.
But 21-9 is not too bad. It means it was still a two possession game, right? Uh, all right.
It's the difference between getting field goals and touchdowns right there.
It is. It's all about the red zone defense.
That's right. Gotta make them stops.
All right. Here we go. We're still in Comerica. We're still doing a nearly perfect. We're still going position by position, which ought to help us. What do you think? Is this the week we finally get a good draft?
I'd say no.
All right, here we go. I think
I
we
didn't
can
get
do it.
any Acunas or Striders, by
Here
the
we
way.
go,
I got one
and
Judge, one Wit,
oh
and I
boy.
think
Well,
3
we're off
historicals.
to a flying start here.
Ooh. Hey,
I'm thinking let's take the 200s. Okay, actually, the good news is it's a natural platoon,
yeah,
kinda. All right. It's okay. Catch is fine. We need a good first base, and we can still do this. We can.
We just have to face all lefties.
We can. Wow.
I mean, I assume it's Lee.
Is it Lee or Teixeira? Actually,
Those were the
let me
two.
see the comparison. Um. All right, they've each got the same eye. You're getting more BABIP and Lee, a little more power. It probably is Lee, right? Yeah, probably is Derek Lee.
Yeah, barely.
Oh boy. All right. Well, we're off to our usual start. Um,
Off to the races.
okay.
Yikes!
Um, I guess it's Jackson
Wow.
Holiday, right?
Yeah. Ugh.
Well, hold on. Is it Holiday or is it Collins?
Is
So,
Comerica
yeah, Comerica, you probably want the one of the both
seven?
lefties.
Is that 79 range?
Um, here, range. Yeah, that is 79 range.
Yikes!
Um, maybe it's still Jackson Holiday.
Yeah, it is a tournament.
Ugh.
Flexibility. Maybe we get
All right,
lucky in
all
the.
right, all right, all right. Hey, at least we're picking hundreds. You know, it's uh, okay. I mean, we're
Go
taking
with
Sal Bando, but we actually literally did not get offered a card from a
Oof.
perfect in a nearly perfect.
Is Bando a recent card? I don't remember that one.
Yeah, Bando's actually sort of got a bat. I mean, he hits lefties.
Hmm. I assumed Tomei was better, but I honestly have not
No,
paid
Bando's
much
actually
attention
pretty
to either.
good. It's just all right.
For the
Um,
choices.
I assume it's Rizzuto. I mean, Glasscock's more flexible, but it's got to be Rizzuto, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's actually a pretty good card.
Hmm.
All right, we got one playable card. Here we go. One almost meta card. And that was good while it lasted. Um, I mean, it's got to be Sheffield, right? There's nothing else close, but
Yeah. Yep. Ouch.
boy, we do this every week somehow. Can it? Okay, can't get worse, I say, and then we look at our center fielders. Um, well, we were just talking
Yikes.
about what what you could do with Ginger Beaumont, right?
Come on down.
I think it's Ginger Beaumont. Uh,
Yep.
uh,
When in doubt, take the newest card. Hmm.
and then look at the right fielders.
Oh no. Yikes.
I don't know how we manage this every single week. It's impressive.
It really is.
Sean Green, I guess.
I have no opinion.
I think it's Green.
Uh,
Okay. All right. All right. All
well,
right. Pitchers. We get some. Oh no. Okay. We got our. Okay. Now this is just nuts. So these are our backup cards. Now they forced us to take two catchers, but now they just offered us actually two catchers that are better than our other catchers. No, three catchers that are better
oh,
than our other catchers. Actually, we should start Dandridge over our other catchers also at catcher. Okay. I think the answer is probably Dandridge. I mean, okay. So let's think about this. So we could run McCarver with Posey, and then McCann just sits, right? The advantage of that is McCarver's just really good.
Yep.
And given that it's single elimination, like maybe we can just make do with 13 hitters.
Yeah. Because the other question is, do we want to get Jackson Holiday out of the lineup?
In which case, Dandridge is a great way to do that, and he's excellent.
Yep.
So I think we are replacing one of the two. Is it the catcher or the second baseman?
One's going to play more often.
I think they're going to play equally often. I think they're both playing one game.
Why worry about fatigue?
Exactly. Which I think says
Well,
just go with McCarver. Let's just go with McCarver. He's the better card.
yeah. And pray he doesn't pull a stunt like that. Did you hear about that catcher with the Minnesota Twins?
Oh yeah. I was trying to figure out because like it's like a Bull Durham thing, but there you're trying to teach the guy a lesson, not like win a
Right.
playoff game.
Hey, we actually have pitchers that aren't the worst.
All right. Well, except that we do have to take 5 of them. So let's see.
I was trying to be
Um,
positive.
taking
I
Brown,
mean, yeah. I assume
taking
Tanana.
Spahn, taking Tanana, taking
Uh,
Page by default.
yeah. So what is it, Job or Sutton? And it's probably Sutton,
Probably
or is
Sutton.
Preacher Rose
It's
not
probably
that
Sutton.
good?
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, at least we're taking 500. I've seen worse. I mean, we just saw
Yeah.
the last part of the draft.
Yeah, we've seen our offense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think comes in
All
just
right.
short.
5. Okay. Well, Appleton's fine. Dibble's fine. Bobby
This
Shantz
is
is
a really good pull
fine.
here.
Yeah, Shantz is fine. And then we're gonna kind of. Oh, Icorn's fine, right? Yeah, Icorn's
We're
new. I mean, he's fine one way. And what? Adams, I guess.
oof, that's so splitty.
Yeah, it's probably Adams, who's also
Yeah,
splitty.
it's not,
It's
but
fine. I
still.
mean, we don't. The
Yeah.
fifth guy in our bullpen's not pitching this tournament. Um,
None of them might pitch.
I know. Okay, Morgan's fine. Oh, 3 cards.
Yeah. Uh,
None of the others are really great, right? So we just want.
no. Does Fairchild have good defense, or is that someone else I'm thinking of?
Nah, I mean, he has okay defense for live, but not,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Actually, maybe the answer is to take. Because we don't even have one. I was gonna say a live that plays like everything. So maybe a guy like Lane Thomas who just plays everything because we're
Hmm.
gonna be a player short. Or Fairchild. Does he play everything? No, he doesn't play infield really. So yeah, maybe we take like a Lane Thomas just because he plays everything.
Yeah.
Or Keppinger sort
Well,
of. Yeah.
we have to take 3.
Well, and then a pitcher. Yeah.
Yeah.
So is it Puck or is it?
Oof.
No. Okay. This Robert Garcia looks okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, this looks fine, right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
All right. And then okay, Addison Reed's fine for sure. Dick McAuliffe is like another like multi-position infield guy. And then what do we need? Probably another infielder if we can find one.
Uh,
Maybe just
yeah.
Monasterio again for all the
Yeah,
positions.
that was right, and he'll have a little more range than
All right. I mean, the
probably.
truth is, this
This
is
draft is going nowhere. Yeah, so
no.
this was bad enough I wouldn't do settings.
But we will at least run McCarver and Posey. Oh, actually, they want to DH Posey. That's actually interesting. I wonder if they're right. Maybe they're right that we want to run McCarver and DH Posey. That's actually probably right, isn't it?
Oh, I
Yeah, we
cannot
get all the
remember.
bats in there. Brian McCann's not really a bat. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
All right.
Why not?
Well, of the various drafts you've done on stream, that was actually somehow on the weaker end. And that's saying something if you're a regular viewer here.
I'm all about the continuity here. I wouldn't want us to be changing things up.
No, but
It would have been appreciated, but was
it
not in
is
the cards.
impressively bad.
I told you I have not had good draft luck for the last like 2 months now.
No.
I have not played. I think I got one fifth through eighth in a weekly PD in the last 4 to 6 weeks.
Well, here we go. I'll help the overnight under the covers fill, and then I think that's a good place to maybe a good place to call it, right? Anything else we want to do this week? I mean, we could try to do one more draft just because that was so bad or something. That's about it.
Yeah, I'm agnostic,
Um, we got like an 11:45 kickoff tomorrow too, if I'm going to go to this game. So
which means you need to be. Yeah, that's gonna be early. Tea time's at 10:30, but I have to go remember how to hit a golf ball, so I will be there earlier than that.
it's easy. Come on, it's like it's like the old Satchel Paige thing, right? The golf ball don't move.
Well, I figured out it doesn't matter how long it's been since I've golfed. I'm good for like 6 holes. Like in a row. Like I will get in a groove and then I'm good. It's like a batter. Like
Yeah.
he's seeing the ball, doesn't matter, and then he's no longer seeing it. That is me on the golf course. Like it may be the first hole through the sixth, it may be 12 through 18, but there will be a 6 hole run where everybody is mad at me because I look like a golfer, and then everything else I'm not.
Yep. That
But
sounds
I will
about
have fun.
right.
So,
Um,
and it's gonna be hot.
but no, I got an early thing tomorrow because I got. I think I'm gonna do like a running thing since I didn't manage to get to Tulsa for this bike race. So go to a race and then still see if I can manage to get back in time to tailgate a bit. How I mean,
Now we're
what
talking.
time do you tailgate before an 11:45 kickoff though?
Yeah, those were like when I was in school, the first year or two I was there, we were bad. And so because we wanted to be on TV, we always had the 11 o'clock games, and those were horrible. They're the worst.
Yeah,
So the answer is, I don't know, you roll out of bed and slam a beer. If you're in college,
yeah.
and then another five.
All right. Well, sounds good. I guess. Oh, the only draft I have that I could still do is a speed draft, which would be we could try it, but that would be tough to do on stream because I don't know how much your delay is being able to see cards.
Yeah, it's a solid, I don't know, 5, 10 seconds,
All right. What
feels
if you
like.
okay? If you try reloading the window, see if that works better, maybe, and then
Okay,
we could try it.
refresh. Yeah.
All right, we'll try it, but if it fails, we'll what is this? 1989, no DH, whatever.
Oh,
Let's
I got a
just.
commercial.
I didn't think we had commercials.
Uh,
I thought I set the ads to off because we don't get any money from them.
I think that's like during stream
I
commercials,
see.
like
Because when
that's
you refresh,
usually
I see. So you get a preload commercial, which is just like Twitch
yes.
makes money and we don't make money.
Yep.
And then the ones where we could set ads and make money, we just set to off.
Yep. Which I think it's almost done. See what Delta can do. Yeah, so ready when you
I
are.
don't want to see what Delta can do, but I'm gonna guess that Delta makes a difference.
Something like that.
It was a
All
math
right,
joke. It was a
fire
math joke.
away.
Never mind. All right, here we go.
Oh, okay. I totally missed it. I'm dialed in on this draft we're gonna nail.
All right, here we go. What do you think? Jackson Churio, I guess,
Still haven't
Or
seen it.
Dunlap. Churio or Dunlap? Maybe it's Dunlap. It's tough. What do you think? Churio, Dunlap? I'm thinking Churio.
Dunlap. Dun sure. I don't know. The eye's low, so I'm not that worried if you don't take him.
All right, whatever. It's 101. How can you not take the 101?
Right? When in
Um,
doubt.
what do you think, Wainwright?
And loaded. Let's see. No, 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 no. Yeah, it's Wainwright. I don't think it's close.
Maybe it's Harry Walker, but it's Wainwright. All right. This is bad, but probably Reggie Sanders because the others are all bad except Dick Hall, who's a reliever.
Yep.
Oh, we actually had 7 minutes on this. We're fine.
Oh
Even
yeah.
if it's slow to load. Uh, so it's probably either the two
Um,
tournament cards or like Wizenhunt
yep.
in one of them.
I can't remember how good Wizenhunt is.
He's okay, but I mean, flattish.
Hmm.
So it's pretty. I'm pretty sure it's
Eh,
Dempsey. I
yeah,
mean, Otis. Yeah, all right. Just take the tournament cards then. Hey, we get chemistry.
that's right.
Get all that chemistry. Um, so then we better keep
Stand
going with
back.
Tanaka, and
Oh
then
yeah, no
I
brainer.
assume Tartable just in DH him. Anyone else you like? Or Stairs
Agreed.
actually. Is it Tartable or Stairs? Maybe it's
Uh,
Stairs if it's just a DH.
it's one of the two for sure. I can't remember.
Here's the comparison.
Uh, that's kind of splitty. Is he?
No, you know what? It's Tartable because of the low avoid K, and this thing's like 1989.
Oh, then yeah, definitely.
So let's go Tartable.
Yep.
Um, hmm.
It's not Scooter.
It's not Scooter. No, might be. So it might be supposed to be Evan. So I'm pretty sure it's Donaldson.
Yeah.
Uh,
We already have
who's gonna
what,
who
three,
also
four
pitches a bit, but he
outfielders?
also pitches a bit for us,
Oh, okay.
right?
He could be
I
first.
think it's maybe still Dwight Evans. Okay, so Tartable's really
Hmm.
just a DH.
Yeah.
Churio does play like third or
All.
something.
I thought he played all three outfield. Oh, he can play.
So it's
But does he play
probably
anything on the
it's
infield
probably just
piece?
Evans. I guess it
It
could be
probably is.
Sammy
Yeah.
Ellis is the other option.
Yeah.
We do have like no pitching. Yeah, maybe it's supposed to be Ellis. 55
Yeah.
stamina, but
Well,
no, but it
we're.
is 1989.
Yeah,
All
and
right, so
we're.
maybe we go
Well, we
Ellis
have.
then.
Yeah, because this is our last or second to last gold round.
All right, that's fair.
When in doubt, take the pitcher.
Um, okay, we don't have a lot of pitchers here. Don Slott is
Um,
great one way, so he's our other
yep.
catcher.
Yep. Larry
Um,
Jackson.
yeah, I mean he was fine at one point in the cycle.
Right? Like that's kind
Let's
of.
do it. Um, well, there's no starting pitcher here,
Mm,
like at all.
I don't. I don't see
I don't see a lot
anything on
of
that
anything I
page.
like actually.
Nope.
Um,
Oh,
um, okay, this Jerry Lumpy, that's a horrible shape for 89, isn't it? But he plays defense, so we're going Lumpy and Kishnik because he's new-ish.
sure. Yeah. When in doubt, burn a bad slot on a reliever.
Okay, Mitchell Parker's fine. He's new-ish. It's got to be either Everett or
Adam,
Roberts, right? Probably Everett. You thinking?
probably, yeah.
All right.
We don't have a shortstop yet, do we? Yeah.
Not unless we stick Churio there or something. I mean,
Well,
Raritan
not
would have been
optimal.
fine, but we just need something else.
Sheffield for VR or VL.
Thing is, we've already
Nah,
got Tartable like stuck in there at
yeah,
DH,
that's true.
so we'd have to run Sheffield just as
Yeah,
our general first baseman if we did that, right?
unless we got lucky and
All right, I think
I
we
mean,
just throw two pitchers on the pile maybe, and
yep, yep.
do you even see a second pitcher you want to throw on the pile? I mean,
Nope.
Komorowski, it's just too avoid K heavy for that year, right?
Yeah.
All right, we're throwing two pitchers on the pile and moving on.
Woo.
Um,
Counting to 11.
all right. Um, okay, Buddy Bell's fine. He only plays
Yeah.
third, but I guess we can just do that, right?
Is Reynolds
Reynolds is also single position, but we could
Yeah.
do. But Lumpy,
Is Shirtle the one that's not horrible?
I think he was the BABIP heavy one instead of the.
Oh, okay. Then yeah, I get. Oh yeah, no, okay. There's him
Yeah,
and somebody else. I always get mixed up.
he's probably
Uh,
okay. I mean, yeah, all right, we can just do that. We have like a minute because it's
mm,
slow to do this
oh,
on
okay.
stream, isn't it? All right.
Who do we have a second? Yeah, whatever.
All right. Danny Patterson and just call it anyone you see real quick.
I mean, Harry Bays. Oh, Gail Hop. No, he plays up, but it's either him or Bay that have any.
All right, we'll go Hopkins, and we got 45 seconds to throw five names out here.
Woo.
Um, let's see,
Oh, we got
Pavano.
Bill Campbell, top left. Dean Crow.
Oh yeah, we'll definitely go Campbell. Okay, Campbell Pavano is fine, and we need well, we need position players, and we just didn't get position
Oh yeah.
players, huh?
Hmm. So take the ones that are there
We'll take the
and
three that are there.
talk about making decisions easy for the wrong
Yeah, but
reasons.
that's going to be really rough because we just have like no infielders.
Oof.
We ran out of infielders. Let me see if we have any backup infielders here. Oh, and we may have forgotten to, by we I mean I, of course, may have forgotten to notice that this is a no DH tournament, which doesn't help Tartable.
That helps with our infield. Not.
Um, okay.
Oof.
I think we want to run Donaldson at first,
Yeah.
maybe Chorio in left, Otis in center. Is our best shot? Something like that. Danny Tartable is our backup right fielder because of course he is.
Well, that's why I say when in doubt, take the pitcher.
Oh, this is gonna be oh, whoops, this is VL. VL actually I want slot at catcher. But VR it's the same kind of thing, right? It's
Power creep comes for us all. Regular release catcher over Tourney Gold.
yeah, well, what can I say? Uh,
Power creep comes for us all.
it's probably the right call though.
Yeah, no, I'm not arguing that at all.
All right, this may not have been a great draft, but hey, we did it. It is a better draft than our TWIP draft, and that makes it a good one to end on, right? Or something like that.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else people want to ask, or should we? Is there anyone good to raid into? I'm not used to kind of who's around at this hour, but
I see Ezra Denny is on.
sure, let's raid Ezra Denny. That works.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks a lot for joining us, and I guess we'll probably see y'all next week. Something similar. Let me get the raid together. Yeah, and say hi to Ezra for us.
Yep. Have a good night, everyone.
All right. All right.